Hey guys, tonight we're unraveling the quietest horror story ever stitched into reality. The kind that creeps in with hearth smoke and tangled threads. Picture this: a sagging cottage squatting in peat-rich lowlands, its chimney coughing curls of rosemary-scented haze that loom by the window. It's been silent for decades, until now. Let's just say you're about to regret ever finding this place. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and current time. I want to see whose nights are about to get extra textured. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You press your palm to the cottage door. Warped oak bites your skin like teeth. Inside, firelight licks walls hung with moth-chewed tapestries. That loom dominates the room, its frame blackened by centuries of peat smoke. Historians love bickering about whether medieval looms were tools or temples. Those scholars clearly never stood here, feeling the air thicken with each step. The shuttle gleams, a bone-white sliver on the warp threads. You lean closer. Your breath stirs dust, motes into a frenzy. Ever heard of Egyptian linen so sheer it could be pulled through a ring? This isn't that. These threads glint like oil on water, slick and shimmering. Your fingers brush the weft. Bad move. The loom jerks wood, groaning like a wounded stag. Warp threads tighten, twisting into symbols you can't parse. A chill creeps up your neck. Medieval weavers believed sleeping looms absorbed nightmares. That's why they woke them with morning chants. This one's been napping since the Black Death. Guess who's its alarm clock? You stumble back, heel catching on a rotted floorboard. The hearth hisses. That fire isn't burning wood. Flames devour clumps of hair, golden, auburn, raven black. Smoke curls into faces with stitch-marked mouths. Their whispers prickle your eardrums. Maybe those old weavers weren't superstitious. Maybe they were survivors. A thread snaps, spitting blue sparks. The tapestry beside you ripples. There it is, a crumbling tower stitched in indigo, moon bleached to bone white. 17 shadows march its parapets. You blink. Now there are 18. Someone's breath warms your ear, sour and damp. Don't turn. Just don't. The air tastes of burnt honey. Your lungs feel wool-lined. That fringe theory about cursed tapestries predicting royal deaths. Turns out Windsor Castle banned textile historians in '63. Coincidence? I'd bet my favorite sweater otherwise. Threads rasp against each other, a sound like beetles in dry leaves. The shuttle moves on its own back, forth back. It's weaving something new. Crimson yarn splices into the web, plucked from where exactly? Your sleeves unraveling, cold seeps through your socks. You glance down. Water pools around your feet, cloudy and warm. No, not water. Sheep's milk. The smell curdles your stomach. Ever tried Nordic dream-weaving elixirs? Neither have I. But folklore says they used ewe's milk, and witch hazel and blood. A nail snags your thumb. Copper droplets bloom on linen. The loom screeches a sound that shatter wineglasses. Patterns rewrite themselves. Fractals become wolves, become weeping eyes. Historians still argue whether the Voynich manuscript's weirdest page depicts herbal remedies or a loom's operating manual. You're leaning toward option 2 now. The hearth coughs a final ember. Darkness swarms thick as uncarded fleece. You fumble for the door. It's gone. Wallpaper peels under your nails, scratch deep enough, and you'll feel thread beneath. The cottage breathes, inhaling your panic like lavender incense. Moonlight slits through a cracked shutter. That's your exit. You lunge shoulder, slamming into damp wood. Cool air kisses your face. Freedom's 3 steps away. But the loom's rhythm pulses in your skull now. Shuttle clacks, syncing with your heartbeat. One last glance back. The tapestry shows a cottage door, slightly ajar. A figure flees into heather. Threads cinch tight around its throat. Run. The loom's heartbeat thrums through worn floorboards. Your soul's hum in reply. Warped wood creaks as the weaver's shuttle flies. Left to right, right to left. A metallic insect trapped in rhythm. Her hands are clockwork, all knuckle and tendon, plucking threads older than gilded cathedrals. Lint rises like disintegrating angels, each mote a snowflake of dead cotton. You inhale splinters of loomed history. Medieval weavers stuffed rosemary in their looms. Moths hate the smell, or so records claim. The air tastes fibrous, tongue dragging across unbleached linen. Some argue Charlemagne slept on linen stuffed with chicken feathers. Turns out royalty enjoyed lumpy pillows. A half-strangled melody leaks from the warp, not a lullaby, but its drunken cousin. It snags your pulse, slows it to 3/4 time. Historians still argue whether 9th century tapestries encoded messages, weed-knit warnings about plagues or Viking raids. The weaver coughs, a sound like carding wool, and the tune shifts. Cotton lint drifts past your nose. It smells of thunderstorms and burnt sugar. You blink, each fleck blossoms into moth shapes, with wings of unraveled hymns. Their antennae brush your lashes. Green tea stains on parchment skin. 12 flicker against the rafters. 11 settle in your hair. Don't mind the ghosts. The loom seems to rasp, its heddles clicking like misplaced teeth. Your eyelids kiss, intimate as threaded needles, as the shuttle spits crimson yarn. 14th century spinners claimed red threads warded off wolf attacks. Useful if you're trailing mutton, crumbs through Transylvanian woods. Breath sinks with the treadle's groan, a biological metronome. You count warp threads, 84, before the pattern dissolves into static. The moths hum now, a choir of rusty zippers, as the weaver's shadow eats the wall. One truth survives the dust. Every tapestry hides the weaver's boredom. French nuns wove Bible scenes. Squirrel-shaped ink blots hide in Judas' robe. Your thumb grazes a floating thread. It vibrates at middle C, the ghost moth's pivot. A silent murmuration, spelling dream in Sanskrit, or maybe taxes. Hard to tell when entropy's knuckle-dragging through the weft. Your jaw unclenches, drops like a broken bobbin. Accept this equation: moth wings plus loom song equals liquid spine. You sink, a thimble dropped in honey, as the weaver's breath crochets the dark. The air thickens, linen threads bloom into crumbling ziggurats beneath your feet. Sand grits between your teeth, or is it centuries-old dust from the weaver's stash? A procession of Egyptian kings marches across the wall, their linen wraps fraying into cobwebs. Historians note they buried their dead in 500 layers of cloth, each sheet thinner than a mayfly's wing. You blink, paper moons peel from the tapestry, their edges curling like burnt parchment. One king's shadow detaches, blacker than a raven's yawn, and slithers into your next exhale. Your lungs taste of mummified myrrh sweet decay that lingers like a wrong note. Did you know some tombs hid booby-trapped weavings, ropes rigged to drop limestone geese on intruders? Or so claims a disgraced museum curator's memoir. The king's silhouette presses against your ribs, a hieroglyph tattoo you didn't order. Threadbare camels drag sledges of sandstone. Workers chant under a sun that's all needle and no thread. Scholars still argue whether pyramid builders ate garlic daily. Payroll records mention radishes, but that's less vampire-proof. Your pinky twitches, echoing a slave's cramp from 30 dynasties ago. The weaver chuckles, her spit-wet finger mending a torn sphinx's paw. A beetle made of knotted yarn climbs your calf, its mandibles clicking Fibonacci sequences. 9th century Baghdad weavers spun tailies into cloth, literally, using ink-dipped needles for punctuation. Too bad their romance epics unraveled in the wash. You pluck the beetle off, it disintegrates into vowels from a dead dialect. 3 moons now hang lopsided, their craters stitched with hairline fractures. That shadow king stirs his hands, knitting your breath into a miniature obelisk. It vibrates, playing the same note as a 1923 tenor's final cough. Someone's playing dice with chronology and cheating, judging by your watch's melted gears. Dust motes coalesce into a cat, Bastet's second cousin, maybe licking its paw with a yarn-textured tongue. Your kneecap itches where Persian carpet patterns bloom, floral motifs mingling with bloodstains from forgotten battles. The weaver spits on her shuttle. It sizzles like water on a king's funeral barge. One truth floats through the haze. All civilizations end as someone's craft project. The obelisk in your throat hums louder. You cough up a date pit from 1347 BCE. Convenient. Shadows multiply, each a slave, a scribe, a concubine swallowed by history's loom. Their whispers weave a shroud around your ankles, linen, fibers whispering forgotten dinner recipes. Ever tried ibis stew? Neither did they, but their ghost taste buds swear it's divine. Air grows dense, suspiciously pyramid-shaped. The weaver's hands slow, her knife-edge smile, suggesting you've overstayed your textile welcome. Time to back toward the exit, if the cottage still believes in such niceties. The tapestry king winks, his paper moon now lodged in your left ventricle. Sleep creeps closer, stitching your eyelids with the precision of an embalmer's suture. The cottage door spits you into mist. Velvet darkness clings like a drenched shawl. Cotton grass licks your ankles. Each seed head hissing nursery rhymes in long-dead Low Saxon. Cobblestones ripple underfoot, their moss-crusted curves echoing the weaver's tapestries. You're back in her thread universe. Or did the cottage burrow into yours? Cold mist parts, revealing a village drowsing under quilted hills. Chimneys puff peat, smoke into hieroglyph shapes, owl-eyed and judgmental. 13 hearth fires burn each flicker, counting down to some woolen midnight. 13th century bylaws required housewives to sweep their doorstones with peacock feathers, plumes dulled by greasy supervision. A half-moon leers its face, stitched with the same crooked smile as the weaver's shuttle. Your footsteps echo, but the sound lags, drunk on shadow syrup. One cottage window glows. A woman spins yarn by firelight, her wheel creaking a lopsided aria. Historians still argue whether medieval cobblestone spirals warded off evil or just guided drunk farmers home. Her shadow stretches across the lane, reaching for your wrist with spindle-sharp fingers. You sidestep, her silhouette unravels into a puddle of boiled wool regrets. Cobblestones thrum a pulse, synced to that stubborn muscle in your chest. Village elders claimed moonless nights made stones sing scales from a half-remembered lullaby. You kneel palm-pressed to damp granite. Something vibrates, a buried chanty about herring and homesickness. Scholars meet the cobblestone jukebox. A well crouches at the square's heart, its bucket brimming with liquid starfall. You dip a hand, the water bites, cold as a widow's wedding band. 19th century miners believed these wells led to wool-lined underworlds, soft burrows where bad children snore forever. A bubble surfaces. It pops into the word remember spoken in your mother's voice. You drop the bucket, ripples erase her face. Cotton grass trembles, seeding the air with tufts that stick to your damp cheeks. They taste of burnt honey and unfinished legal documents. A dog barks 2 streets over, its bark fraying into sheep's cough at the edges. The woman's spinning wheel stutters the rhythm, infected by your rabbit-quick heartbeat. You pass a butcher's shop. Meat hooks dangle empty, but for crowfeather mirages. Faint bleeding swells from a cellar grating, or maybe it's the wind strangling itself on yarn. 16th century tax records mention phantom sheep here, flocks counted twice, but never shorn. Your neck prickles, wet fleece brushes your nape, but when you turn, only mist. 3 children's jump ropes lie coiled in the gutter, their handles carved from Loom shuttles. You tow one, it hisses like steam escaping a kettle. Hopscotch grids glow faintly, chalk lines seeping foxfire phosphorescence. Jump, and the village skips a century. Stumble, and you'll taste gutter water from the Black Death years, a game for idiots or visionaries. You step over the ropes, The church bell tolls, its bronze throat stuffed with moth-eaten hymnals. 9 strokes, each slower than the last. Time's bleeding syrup again. Your watch stopped hours ago, its hands fused into a single accusing finger. Above the bell tower, the moon unpicks its stitches, stringing the clouds into a cat's cradle. You find the source of the heartbeat, a cottage-sized loom wedged between the smithy and a gnawed elm. Its warped frame groans, threads strung with dew and mouse whispers. Touch the nearest shuttle, it burns colder than the well water. 18th century weavers here wove funeral shrouds from unspooled spider silk, each burial cloth lighter than a sigh. The loom jerks, threads snap, dropping a coil of yarn at your feet. It's the same rust red as the village's oldest tombstones. Pocket it, the wool hums like a beehive wrapped in velvet. Behind you, the spinning woman's shadow reknits itself, all elbows and teeth. Dawn licks the horizon, a fox's tongue lapping at night's black milk. The cottages inhale, shutters clamping shut, hearthfires suffocating in their own ash. Your lungs ache, time to leave before the village exhales its secrets. You follow the cobblestones downhill, their pulse fading, as mist swallows the last chimney. Somewhere beneath your boots, a buried loom pedal creaks, threading darkness into the shape of your next breath. The loom pedal's creak follows you uphill, each step sinking into moss that muffles like a dropped spindle. Moonlight bleeds through cloud gauze, a pockmarked face peering through bandages. That's when you see it, the silver threads. They hang from the sky itself, strands fraying where the stars snag them. You reach your fingers, brush something colder than winter's first breath. Celestial patterns twist overhead, a tapestry of constellations stitched with clumsy hands. Ursa Major droops, one threadbare paw unraveling into the void. Historians still argue whether medieval nuns wove prayer into actual cloth, or if that's just monkish guilt over silk prices. You pluck a snapped thread. It hums a C-sharp that buzzes in your molars. A rusted needle juts from the turf, its eye wide enough to fit a wish. You whisper 8 syllables, nonsense ones, the kind you'd scribble in a chapel's guest book. The needle twitches, jabs the thread into the sky's raw fabric. A new star sparks its light weak as a guttering candle. 16th century astronomers documented these stitch stars, claimed they died within decades. Wind tugs at the mended patch, threads strain like overtuned lute strings. Your breath fogs the air, each exhale a phantom tapestry, unraveling before it's done. The moon watches, its craters suddenly sharp as a thimble's dimples. You shiver. 13 nuns in Toulouse once spun yarn from lunar moths. Or so their heresy trial transcripts claim. The wool dissolved at dawn, left them cloaked in naked shame. A knot forms where you repaired the sky, a tangle OF Chinese letter and wishbone. It throbs, splotching the grass with foxfire patches. You press an ear to the weave. Distant laughter trickles out, high-pitched, tinny. Scholars insist it's atmospheric pressure, singing through fibers. You know better, it's the sound of someone threading Venus's orbit through a tambour hoop. 3 more threads snap, each twang vibrating your ribs. The needle's gone now, buried itself in the hill like a mortified letter opener. You fumble for the rust-red yarn from the village. Its hum syncs with the fraying sky. Wrap it around a sagging constellation, Lyra maybe, though its shape suggests a drunkard's doodle. The wool pulses warm as fresh-baked bread forgotten in an oven. Shadows congeal below, velvet fingers prodding your ankles. A lone sheep gazes up, its eyes twin black shuttles. Blink, it's just a boulder draped in lichen. Blink again, the lichens shifted into fleece. 17th century shepherds swore stones here grew wool under pregnant moons. A rock ram superstition even charlatans ignored. The boulder bleats a sound that curdles the mist. You retreat, heel catching on exposed root threads. Stars drip above, liquid light sizzling where it hits the grass. One drop lands on your wrist, leaves a mark like a tiny Loom shuttle. Historians still argue whether sky wounds scar or just haunt. The stain throbs in time with the petals creak, now miles below your boots. 8 syllables rise unbidden, not yours. They taste of elderflower and static. You exhale them toward the tattered Ursa. Threads writhe, knotting into something that might be a leg or a noose. The moon exhales. Its breath reeks of tarnished silver and lullabies. Dew soaks your knees, each drop a shattered constellation. You find another needle wedged in a thistle, this one bent like a bishop's crook. Whisper the stranger's syllables. The needle leaps, snags Lyra's loose thread, yanks, until the harp shape screams into tune. Something tugs back. The sky rips, a jagged mouth full of comet teeth. Wind howls through the gap, 1,000 warped lullabies harmonizing into white noise. You reel backward, fingernails clawing turf. The last thing you see, a girl's hand darting through the tier, snatching a fistful of loose threads before the hole knits itself shut. Dawn pries at the horizon, pale fingers staining the sky peach. The tapestry fades, threads dissolving into nothing but dew and déjà vu. Your wrist's shuttle scar still pulses, a mute metronome. You rise, boots squelching in soaked grass, and turn toward the next hill. Somewhere beyond it, a girl giggles, 8 syllables dangling from her teeth like stolen yarn. Your boots sink into riverbank, silt that clings like wet flour sifting through a colander. The stream before you ripples wrong, its surface matted with gray wool that parts around your shins. Cold seeps through your socks, the kind that makes toes forget they're paired. You wade deeper, and the current tugs, not at your legs, but at the hem of your shadow. Flax-dyed strands coil around submerged rocks, their frayed ends birthing miniature whirlpools. Historians still argue whether 12th century fulling mills hummed hymns or curses as they felted wool. The answer's probably both. A knot of fleece bobs past, its shape uncannily sheep-shaped, until it dissolves into froth. You plunge a hand beneath the surface. The water's thicker here, like trying to grab mercury, wearing mittens. Something brushes your ankle, a sodden yarn collar trailing broken stitches. You lift it. The wool drips patterns too precise for chance. 16th century Venetian dyers used sheep fat to waterproof silk stockings. A greasy secret their ledgers never confessed. The collar writhes, twists into a noose, then unravels into the current. Cottonwood seeds drift down each tuft, sprouting ghostly wool upon contact with the stream. They cluster around your knees, forming transient islands that whisper when the wind shifts. You catch a phrase, ahistorical laundering practices, delivered in a tone drier than parchment. Above, the sheep clouds sag, their bellies distended with rainwater they refuse to release. A skein of yarn surfaces, its red darker than blood after oxidation. Medieval tanners once soaked sheepskins in urine to soften hides, though experts swear they rinsed them after. You reel in the yarn, it's warm, as if someone left it baking on a windowsill. The strands thrum against your palm, a staccato rhythm that matches the village's long-dead looms. Midstream, 3 stones form a fractured triangle. You step onto the first. Its moss squelches like a stepped-on lung. The second stone rocks, reveals a hollow crammed with sheared wool, clotted with river muck. 17th century fisherfolk used fleece to line crab pots, claimed it soothed the crustaceans into compliance. The third, stone slippery, its surface etched with half-moon grooves from countless cloven hooves. You slip. The river catches you, if catch means filling your mouth with lanolin-flavored water. Wool clings to your eyelids, each blink a battle against sodden gauze. Currents drag you downstream, past roots that flex like skeletal fingers. Your elbow scrapes a submerged loom frame, its warped wood humming a dirge in F minor. Air bursts into your lungs as you breach the surface, a gasping symphony. The far bank looms its mud, glittering with mica shards that mimic eyes. You claw toward it, nails gouging channels in the wool-clogged water. Something snags your sleeve, a child's woolen mitten, still gripping its twin. Victorian orphans traded mitten pairs for gingerbread, a grim economy documented in faded invoices. You collapse onto the bank, cheek pressed to mud that smells of wet dog and cloves. The river spits your boots back upstream, a petty revenge. Above, sheep clouds finally rupture, their wool unraveling into rain that stings like needle pricks. Historians still argue whether Neolithic felted artifacts were ritual offerings or just really bad laundry day experiments. A drowned tapestry washes ashore. Its threads depict monks herding sheep through a comet's tail. The warps snapped, leaving the lead cleric mid-sneeze for eternity. You peel a corner back, revealing older threads beneath. Coptic weavers from the 5th century hid cursed tablets in linings, their insults blooming like mold when exposed to moonlight. Twilight stains the water indigo. The current slows, strands congealing into a bridge of matted fleece. It creaks underfoot, each step squeezing out rivulets that glow faintly bioluminescent. 19th century sailors mistook similar lights for mermaids, wrote bawdy ballads about their woolen hair. Mid-bridge, you pause. The river's heartbeat thrums through the fibers, a tempo that matches the weaver's pedal from miles back. You drop to your knees, press a palm to the trembling wool. The vibration sharpens, becomes a word repeated in Morse code. Release. You stand, heel grinding the message into silence. The far bank beckons with its moth-eaten willows and the promise of drier socks. Behind you, the river sighs, its waters knitting themselves into a sweater 2 sizes too small. Your shadow drips fleece all the way to the tree line. The forest exhales mildew and wet wool, a scent that clings to your molars. Moth-eaten willows part ahead, revealing a hut cobbled from warped loom frames. Its thatched roof sags, draped in cobwebs heavy, with decades of trapped starlight. A low hum vibrates your spleen memory of dental drills set to lullaby tempo. You duck through the crooked doorway, nearly impaling your scalp on hanging spindles. The crone's silhouette dominates the room, her spine curved like a snapped lyre string. Her hands dart between 12 spinning wheels, each whorl dragging downy light from the rafters. Historians still argue whether Neolithic spindle whorls held ritual significance or just made threading easier for arthritis. Starlight spins into yarn that glows blue-white, the same shade as freezer burn. It pools at her feet, crackling faintly like static-charged hair. Took you long enough, she rasps, her voice a cheese grater over sandstone. Her left eye stays milky, still, while the right tracks your shadow's damp fleece trail. You glimpse parchment labels on the wheels. DREAMS, unwashed. PROMISES, broken. LULLABIES, third draft. 17th century spinners used nettle fiber for shrouds, believed it slowed corpse decay by 2 liturgical hours. The crone snorts, a sound that would earn applause at a tubercular goose convention. Stop eyeballing my notes, her chant resumes, each syllable clotting the air like lard down a drain. The rhyme scheme suggests 14th century Occitan poetry. If the troubadours were hammered on hemlock tea, walls ripple, your shadow molts fleece in clumps that sprout tiny legs. A wool mite army retreats under the door, wisely avoiding her stamping foot. She thrusts a spindle into your hands, its whorl warm as a just-fired bullet. Wind the scream thread, she orders, gesturing to a distaff piled with glistening vocal cords. Folklorists dug up records of alpine villages, using spindle hum to repel landslides. It worked until the mixtapes got catchy. The fibers bite your fingertips, each strand humming middle C sharp. You twist, the yarn sucks a scream from your lungs before you can voice it. The crone nods, her neck vertebrae pop like champagne corks. Good, she croaks. Now bottle it before the melancholy evaporates. Her chant swells, thickening the air until breathing feels like swallowing meringue. A jar labeled Midnight SNACKS overflows, with coiled screams, their timbre ranging from dental visit to existential crisis. Your knuckles brush a finished skein. It shrieks in E-flat minor. 9 generations of Scottish midwives used scream yarn to stitch post-birth talismans, sold separately as teething aids. She kicks a stool toward you, its legs uneven from centuries of aggressive pedaling. Sit, she growls, already respinning your scream into something resembling a love ballad. The wheel creaks, a sound that reshapes your ribcage's acoustics. You notice her bare feet, toenails blackened from walking through composer's final thoughts. Starlight dims as her spinning accelerates. The wheels blur into halos of fever-bright activity. One thread snaps, releases a perfume of burnt epiphanies and locker room fungal spray. The crone hisses, a dialect your sinuses vaguely recognize from Bronze Age tax ledgers. Finish the cadence, she commands, tossing you a shuttle pregnant with half-formed regrets. You weave each pass across the warp leaves blisters, bubbling with illegible sonnets. The loom devours yesterday's tenses. Present participles get stuck in the heddles like gristle. Outside, hut walls dissolve into goldenrod stalks that whisper outdated knitting patterns. The crone collapses into her threads, snoring like a woodchipper, digesting a harpsichord. Her spindle clatters down, still spinning a filament of your mother's unfinished lullaby. You pocket 7 inches of scream silk. It vibrates against your thigh like a muted grenade. Dawn licks the eastern loom frame, its light shearing the crone's remaining hair into dust motes. The hum follows you into the birch grove, etching tonight's fugue into your molars. The birch grove thins, its silver trunks dissolving into threadbare tapestries hung from nothing. You halt, palm raised, before a weaving of splintered oak doors stretching into infinite dusk. Medieval nobles hung tapestries for insulation, practicality masked as grandeur, while frost gnawed their castle toes. Your pinky brushes a brass hinge. Cold bleeds up your arm like injected mercury. The door creaks open, revealing not wood, but warp threads vibrating at headache frequencies. Historians still argue whether these weavings depicted symbolic portals or actual exits for inconvenient relatives. A moth flutters from the lintel, its wings stitched with Phoenician shipping manifests. Second door rusted nails, weeping terracotta rivulets. Mongol horsemen, threaded mare's tail hairs through doorframes. Ghost security systems for nomadic yurts. You trace a frayed strand. It hums the opening bars of a Kurma throat song. The latch crumbles, revealing a desert road where caravan bells toll in reverse. Third door knots twist into Roman numeral III instead of IV. Your breath fogs an enamel knob that shouldn't exist here, too sleek, too IKEA. Turns out theft-proof. 14th century Flemish weavers smuggled heresies into border patterns, heresies, now reduced to live, laugh, loom, cross-stitch kits. Fourth frame hangs empty, its tapestry peeled back like sunburnt skin. Behind it, a brick wall, sweating lie and bad decisions. You press your ear to cool masonry. It murmurs market prices for Georgian-era indigo. Fifth attempt. A child's drawing of a door crayoned onto burlap. Touch the waxy lines. Your fingertips come away smelling of melted birthday candles and library paste. The knobs, a thimble stolen from some giantess's sewing kit. Turn it, the burlap parts like stage curtains, but only your shadow slips through. Sixth panel depicts your apartment door exact down to the takeout menus. And scratch, marks from Mrs. Petrovska's emotional support ferret. Reach for the knob. Threads snarl into barbed wire. Cleopatra's perfumers supposedly infused palace drapes with attar, so even slammed doors smelled like floral surrender. This one reeks of microwaved fish and regret. Seventh weave, charred, wood still smoldering at the edges. Your reflection warps in the blackened glass knob. Archaeologists found Vesuvius victims' final moments preserved in wall weavings. Carbonized laughter stuck mid-guffaw. The heat sears your palm. You recoil, leaving a sweat imprint shaped like Leonardo's helicopter sketch. Eighth door sits ajar, hinges squealing, a tune your molars remember from the crone's hut. Push harder, it resists, then buckles like wet cardboard. The threshold writhes, threads knitting themselves into a drawbridge guarded by geese. Their needle-sharp beaks hiss Renaissance obscenities. Ninth panels a mirror. You're already walking away before it can pull that fairest of them. All nonsense. Your shadow lingers, try to bargain with its reflection, using half-remembered tick-tock dance moves. 10th door blooms indigo, its keyhole exhaling brine and rotted lilacs. Press your eye to the whole waves crash against a shore where 7 sisters comb lice from each other's seaweed hair. Their song curls around your ankles, pulls like an undertow made of velvet. 11th attempt, a bead curtain disguised as oak planks. The wooden droplets clatter, each carved with suffragette slogans and K-pop lyrics. Push through, they reconfigure into wind chimes, accusing you of forgotten library finds. 12th door lacks handles, just a donkey kicks dent near the base. You kneel, peering through the splintered hole, and meet your own gaze from last Tuesday. That version of you mouths don't, before the tapestry unravels into party streamers. Wind snatches the threads, weaving them into a kite that tugs at your sourced tendon. You release it, watch red yarn bleed across clouds, shaped like unsent breakup texts. The grove exhales, birch sap congealing into something that might be amber, or might be earwax from a very old god. The grove's sticky residue coats your soles. Each step squeaks like wet glass on slate. You follow amber trails oozing between birch roots until the ground gives way. Cold slaps your shins, then hips, then collarbones indigo thick as regret flooding your mouth. 18th century dyers fermented this stuff in giant vats of stale urine. Bet your yoga retreat detox never suggested this immersion. Your thrashing limbs stir swirls of lappies and midnight, colors reserved for Mary's robes In medieval tapestries, bubbles rise like inverted galaxies. Through the viscous blue, you spot a woman's silhouette treading water above. Her arms spread wide, a crucifixion pose, if crucifixes wore hoop skirts. Breathe, she gargles, indigo pouring from her eye sockets like mascara in a rainstorm. You kick towards her fabric billows around your ankles, a baptism by calico. Historians still argue whether Renaissance dyers added lead to deepen hues, or just enjoyed watching apprentices hallucinate. Your lungs bloom with petals that itch like fiberglass insulation. The woman grabs your wrist, her grip, a rusted shackle, 9 pounds of woad to dye one soldier's tunic. She rasps, voice gnawed by lie burns. Ever wonder why Caesar's troops looked so grim? Her laugh churns the dye, releasing fumes of rotted eggs and burnt sugar. 3 bloated sheep carcasses float past, wool permanently azure. A submerged loom materializes, its shuttle darting like a manic guppy. You reach for it, threads snake around your throat, yanking you deeper. 18th century Paris banned indigo imports to protect their local woad industry. Fashion wars are older than TikTok. The woman swims upside down, now her skirts ballooning into jellyfish tendrils. They called it devil's dye. She croons, fingernails sketching alchemical symbols in the murk. Not for the stench, but because it outlasted every sin. A skeletal catfish brushes your cheek, its whiskers spelling out Phoenician curses. Your vision tunnels, edges fading to the creamy white of undyed linen. Something clamps your calf. Yank, your heel hits solid clay. You're kneeling in a vat's shallows, gasping air that reeks of fermented mollusks. The woman perches on the rim now, dripping dye that eats holes in the soil. Archaeologists found 500-year-old indigo vats in Gujarat, still vibrant enough to stain modern lab coats. She wrings out her hair, liquid splattering into shapes of starving lapdogs. 30 days they'd fermented, she says, pointing to distant vats bubbling like tar pits. Men fainted headfirst into the muck, became human dye packets. Her wink leaves a trail of cobalt smudges. The loom surfaces beside you, strung with seaweed and sardine bones. Weave a lifeline, your fingers cramp around slippery threads. Tudor sumptuary laws find commoners for wearing blue. Now you're drowning in the stuff. The woman kicks your hands away, shuttle stabbing the space between your knuckles. No shortcuts, she hisses, voice suddenly sharp as her rusted scissors. Royalty bathed in this, why not you? You cough up a dead sparrow, its feathers dyed funeral black. A distorted face floats beneath the surface, mouthing silent pleas through indigo sludge. Might be your reflection, might be last Tuesday's breakfast. Light fractures above storm clouds or cracked porcelain. The vat's walls begin to crumble dye, cascading into a desert gully. Ottoman traders carried indigo in camel stomachs. The acid preserved the pigment. You're riding the tide now, blue torrent carving hieroglyphs into sandstone. The woman waves from a shrinking island of clay, her smile a crescent wrench. Tell them I'm not sorry, she shouts, dissolving into a flock of drenched starlings. Your knees scrape gravel. The desert sun bleaches your clothes neural white. Only your shadow remains blue, a defiant splotch whispering of drowned weavers. Your shadow stays blue, a stain on sun-bleached sand. It leads you to a cottage wedged between dunes, its thatched roof sprouting cholla spines. Inside, a loom eats sound. Each swing of the shuttle sucks the buzz from your ears. Boot squeak, erased mid-step. The boy at the loom might be 12 or 30 or a taxidermied dream. His hands blur, feeding threads that fray into vacuum. 16th century Venetian glassmakers worked in silence. One wrong word could shatter molten vases. You open your mouth, nothing leaks out, not even breath. The boy weaves your swallowed words into the warp black threads, swallowing hello whole. A plaque on the wall says Silencio, rust eating the O. Historians still argue whether Pythagoras' cult truly banned speech or just really hated small talk. You tap the floor, the wood drinks the vibration. Margaret Cavendish once wrote a play performed entirely through interpretive dance. This feels like the remix. The boy points to your throat, his finger trails smoke. You mouth, "Who are you?" The question unravels midair. He smiles, all teeth and no gums. His shuttle plucks a spiderweb dangling from the rafters, weaving it into the cloth. You try humming. The tune curdles in your sinuses. Soundless sheep graze in the corner, wool vibrating like plucked bass strings. One chews the fringe of a rug. The fraying threads hiss static. The boy tosses a spindle. It hangs in midair, defying physics and good manners. You point to the cottage groans. Beams creak inward, swallowing the word like a dog stealing bacon. Faint glyphs pulse on the walls, maybe Etruscan, maybe IKEA instructions. His loom finishes a patch of fabric, pure silence in textile form. Renaissance scholars believed quiet could cure plague. Turns out, it just makes awkward eye contact louder. You pantomime writing. The boy tosses you a charred stick. Charcoal words vanish from the floorboards, consumed before help finishes forming. 17th century nuns in Lisbon communicated through embroidery. Their needles stitched secrets into altar cloths. You sketch a door. The boy shreds it with his teeth. Rain starts, drops hit the roof without noise. The boy catches one midair, weaves its glint into the cloth. Your joints ache from unspoken words piling up, vowels wedged under ribs. You mouth his name, except you don't know it. Guess wrong, lungs burning with an error message. The cottage shudders, rafters bending like a ribcage mid-cough. Then click, the loom stops. He extends a palm, threads spell Antinous in knotted silk. Beloved of Hadrian, drowned in the Nile before 20. You try whispering it, lips shaping each syllable with care. The cottage inhales, floorboards yawn wide, the name torn from your tongue like a rotten tooth. Something wet plops into the void. The boy nods, shuttle already moving, as silence stitches your lips into a scar. Blue licks climb the linen, flames born from rotting cloth. Your shadow sears cobalt against the wall, a stain that winks at you. Each moth hole glows like a struck match, sputtering foxfire that stinks of wet mushrooms. 18th century monks used this glow to read forbidden texts, their midnight pages greased with heresy. You lean closer. The stench burns like bourbon in a paper cut. Threads curl away from your breath, scorching 9 tiny alphabets into the air. A vulpine shape coils overhead. Rusted chandelier chains hold its charcoal bones. Ribs jut like kite struts. Each sway conjures the creak of a gallows rope. Historians still argue whether Chartres, blue glass borrowed from foxfire rituals, or just had really terrible lighting budgets. The fox's jaw unhinges. A moth-winged chuckle spills out. Its grin reflects in the flames. Too many teeth, all sharp as tailoring shears. You step back, your heel crunches something brittle. Scattered teeth gleam in the glow, some human, some lupin, all yellowed by time. 1940s denture, adhesive, contained radium for that healthy shine, though glowing gums lost popularity fast. You kick a molar, it arcs through the dark, catching fire midair. Heat warps the ceiling beams, sweat beads freeze on your neck. The fox's tail twitches, ember shadows leap onto moth-chewed drapes. Flames skitter sideways, defying every law of physics and basic human decency. A tapestry ignites, depicting Louis XIV line dancing with plague doctors. The fire eats their embroidered laughter first. You slap the fabric, palms sizzling like bacon on a skillet. Smoke twists into cursive words you can't read, but taste like burnt rosemary. The fox exhales, wind rips through the room. Embers swirl into a tornado of dying stars. You shield your face, fingernails scorched black. Someone once tried bottling foxfire as a love potion. Victims mostly coughed up bioluminescent phlegm. Flames kiss your sleeve, threads retreat into ash. Your pulse thumps a Morse code even the Boy Scouts couldn't decipher. The vulpine's skull tilts, flames guttering in its eye sockets. You grab a pitcher of stale water, hurl it at the blaze. Liquid hangs midair, a jellyfish of droplets refracting blue. Fire freezes inside each bead, flickering like cursed Christmas lights. The fox yawns, its tongue lolls, a scarlet fuse smoldering at the tip. You pluck a droplet, it shatters, scattering cold sparks across the floor. Soot crunches underfoot, each step leaves a glowing print. Your lungs itch with the ghost of a scream. Renaissance doctors believed inhaling foxfire cured melancholy. It mostly cured patience of being alive. Fingers brush your shoulder, chilled brass claws dimpling your skin. The fox perches on a disintegrating armchair, foxfire outlining its skeletal grin. You brace for teeth, but it offers a spool of smoldering thread instead. Chimney sweeps once carried foxfire embers for luck, half ended up as toast. You reach, threads sear your palm. The burn spells RENARD in blistered flesh. Walls warp, plaster melting into honeycomb amber. The floor dissolves, revealing a cellar packed with glass jars. Each holds a flickering wisp, souls of librarians who died shushing battlefields. Flames whisper in your ear vowels, sizzling against eardrums. You jam a fist in your mouth, biting down on unspoken words. The fox applauds, claws clacking like time cards in a haunted factory. Smoke curls into your nostrils, scorching the scent of singed birthday cake. Historians still argue whether Joan of Arc's voices smelled like burnt sugar. You cough. A spark flies out, hitting the fox's nose like a love dart. It sneezes. Green flames rocket across the room. Shelves ignite. Preserved newt eyes pop like corn kernels. You dive behind an overturned table, pressed against wood hotter than a PlayStation on launch day. The fox howls, a soundless inferno peeling wallpaper into ash doves. Your shadow flaps its wings, a bluebird made of regrets. You pluck a feather. It melts into indigo ink, dripping memento mori between your fingers. Glass shatters. Jars unleash their ghost lights. Wisps swirl into a comet, crashing through the ceiling. Moonlight floods in, extinguishing the last foxfire ember. The fox lies shattered, charcoal bones scattered like pickup sticks. Your palm still smolders, the name Renard, now pink scar tissue. A moth lands on the brand, its wings fanning coolness that almost feels like mercy. Thunder cracks. The cottage shudders like a kicked cello. Your scar pulses, Renard thrumming in time with distant lightning. The shattered fox bones rattle, spelling Windsor across the floorboards. Guess even ghosts have brand loyalty. Rain slashes the roof, needles punching through thatch. A loom awakens in the corner, shuttle darting without hands. Its rhythm matches the storm's tantrum. Overlock stitches, biting the air. You recall medieval weavers timing storms for tension. Monks hid in their workshops when thunder turned heretic. Threads snap taut, each twang sharp as a crossbow release. The shuttle lunges, carving a charred line through your shadow. Your soles stick to wool sodden with phantom rain. Historians still argue whether Tudor-era lightning strikes improved tapestry durability or just made frugal lords feel better about leaky roofs. Yarn bleeds rust red, pooling around your ankles like warm syrup. You grab the shuttle, its wooden belly thrums with pent-up thunder. 16th century samurai repaired armor mid-battle with similar tools and probably comparable swearing. The wood sears your palm, blisters bloom like time-lapse fungi. Lightning forks through the window, electrifying the warp threads. Suddenly, you're gripping live wires in a plaid straight out of Frankenstein's closet. The loom hisses, steam rising from rain-soaked heddles. Your hair stands taller than Louis XIV's wig on Coronation Day. Fabric grows under the beater, crimson cloth, patterned with lightning scars. A threaded needle bursts into flame. You stamp it out with a tapestry scrap. Turns out flammable and inflammable mean the same freaking thing here. Storm cellars once stored dynamite and apparently haunted yarn. Who knew? Thunder shakes the ceiling. Dust falls as powdered time. The shuttle carves runes into the air, each glowing brighter than a tick-tock influencer's veneers. You try reading them. The letters squirm like eels in a fryer. Rain soaks through your collar, chilling vertebrae one by one. The loom's treadles stamp faster, pounding out a folk punk rendition of Ring Around the Rosie. A thread snaps, whips your cheek, leaving a welt that hums nursery rhymes. Lightning strikes the shuttle. Wood splinters into 100 charred splinters. Your ears ring with the sound of breaking looms across centuries. Huguenot weavers smashed theirs during persecutions rather than surrender them. The air smells of burnt cedar and regret. The warp threads glow white-hot. You chuck a moth-eaten blanket over them. It combusts on contact because tonight's theme is obviously arson chic. Smoke coils into storm clouds that drizzle ash. Your eyes water, tears leaving salt trails on soot-streaked skin. A salvaged shuttle fragment vibrates in your fist, its grain patterned like a hurricane's fingerprint. You press it to the still weaving loom. Wood fuses with a scream of sheared atoms. The resulting cloth shimmers, depicting your own face mid-sneeze from 3 Tuesdays ago. Thunder fades to a grumble, the storm spent like a drunk's paycheck. The loom stutters to stillness, last thread hanging limp as a deflated balloon animal. Your heartbeat slows, no longer synced to lightning strobe. Some idiot in the 1920s marketed storm-blessed scarves that allegedly cured gout. Buyers mostly got lightning struck. Rain drips through the shattered roof, pocking the crimson fabric at your feet. Each droplet blooms into an embroidered owl, 78 pairs of judgmental eyes. You swat at them. Threads unravel into liquid that stains your palms, biblical plague red. The cottage exhales, walls creaking back into their original positions. There's a new smell now, ozone blended with sheep's wool, and the acrid tang of life choices. The last thunderclap echoes in your molars, a baseline for tinnitus. Somewhere outside, a branch cracks under the weight of drenched silence. The shuttle lies cold, its wood now ordinary and splintered. You sweep up foxbone fragments with a warped reed, each piece whispering courtly French insults as they hit the trash. Your RENARD scar itches, a reminder that fire and thread share the same sharp grammar. Floorboards groan, protesting the storm's violence and your continued existence in equal measure. Lightning flickers one last time, its afterimage sewing your shadow to the wall with invisible thread. Your shadow strains against the wall, invisible threads snake towards a freshly dug pit outside. Dawn's first light reveals it, 30 hands deep and lined with lichen-crusted stones. The loom lies splintered at the bottom, heddles bent like crucified spiders. 16th century Saxon weavers buried broken looms at crossroads, a DIY exorcism for cursed heddles. This grave smells of mildew and guilt. Roots dive from a skeletal oak, twisting around brass components with the precision of an arthritic clockmaker. 30 figures emerge from the mist, hooded shapes, dragging threadbare mourning veils. Each clutches a fistful of seed pearls, translucent spheres with smoke trapped inside. You recognize a few. The baker's missing daughter glows with miscarriage dreams. The blacksmith's stillborn twins swirl with unbaked bread and unanswered letters. One pearl cracks open as it lands. A phantom foal gallops across the loom's corpse before dissolving. Victorian entomologists swore jewel beetles spun gold thread, until a beekeeping nun proved they just regurgitated gilded sap. The mourners chant, in a bastardized Yorkshire dialect, rhymes about spindle ghosts and flaxstacks rebellions. Dirt cascades into the pit, clods hiss where they touch exposed warp threads. The loom's remnants fuse with tree roots. Brass gears bloom into copper leaves. You half expect a memorial plaque. Maybe here lies Granny's worst holiday gift. 1490-21567. A mourner peels back her veil. It's the crone from Section 7, lips stitched with star silk. She lobs a fist-sized pearl. It shatters against a heddle, releasing the muffled screams of a Huguenot weaver mid-lynching. Later scholars will bicker about guilt versus ghosts, but tonight the earth accepts its meal without debate. The burial party retreats, veils fluttering like surrender flags. You kneel at the pit's edge. Roots snatch a lock of your hair to braid into the soil. A pearl rolls to your foot. Its smoky core flickers with a half-remembered birthday party from age 6. You pocket it, roots close over the grave. Stunted saplings sprout instantly. Bark whorled like unspun wool. 5 minutes pass before you notice. The cottage's foundation now oozes indigo sap where the loom once stood. It smells of drowned monks and bookbinding glue. Your shadow finally tears free, leaving a frayed silhouette glued to the wall. Some idiot will probably hang a tapestry over it in 1743. Start a cult, get beheaded by Methodists. You spit into the grave, the soil bubbles, births a single moth with church Latin etched on its wings. 3 crows land to scavenge, their claws click against buried brass. One coughs up a pearl shaped like your molar. You turn away. First burials always stink of paperwork and bad karma. The rising sun ignites the saplings. Their leaves blaze neon green before crumbling to ash. A cold breeze sweeps through. It carries the reek of burnt hornets and a whisper in Middle Dutch about tax evasion. You trudge back inside, stepping over the threshold where the loom once hummed. The floorboards feel softer now, rotting from the roots below. A single seed pearl rolls from your pocket, trails you toward the moth-eaten armchair. It pulses gentle as a snoozing juror's snore. The seed pearl warms in your palm. Its faint pulse syncs with the floorboard's creaks. Your nail finds a ridge, that same snarl of thread from the buried loom's shroud. Medieval linen merchants tied knots to tally sheep, except this one buzzes like a phone left in silent mode. You pinch the twisted fibers. They thrum against your fingertips. 13th century, nuns swore tangled thread could store prayers. Your knuckle brushes the knot, and the cottage's rafters groan. Walls lean inward, plaster cracks into spiderweb lace. A splinter stings your earlobe. The room contracts like a dehydrated lung. You yank the thread hard. A sound rips through the air. Not a note, a sensation. Your molars vibrate. Maltese sailors once blamed singing ropes for shipwrecks. But this is Beethoven's Fifth, rearranged for dental drills. The floor heaves. A floorboard snaps upward, revealing roots choked with blue thread. Historians still argue whether the Bayeux Tapestry's gaps were medieval censorship or moth damage. You're betting on moths. Acidic light floods the room, the source. A glowing knot where the hearth should be. Your shadow reattaches jerkily, like bad stop motion. It points toward the ceiling. Above you, the rafters have knit themselves into a ribcage, each beam bending with wet clicks. The cottage inhales. Your hair whips toward the walls. That sarcastic voice in your head mutters, open floor plans are overrated. You duck as a china cabinet collapses. Shards form a mosaic of your face mid-sneeze. The thread in your hand frays. Each strand emits a different pitch. One hums the die's eerie. Another pings like a microwave timer. 3 Mycenaean amphoras crash through the window, totally anachronistic. But the cottage isn't checking footnotes. Clay shards skitter toward the knot, reassembling into a vase that vomits seaweed. Your socks are wet now. Cool, the walls exhale, your eardrums pop. A tapestry depicting the Boston Tea Party slithers off the wall, except the crates hold spinning wheels instead of tea. Someone's ancestor failed history class. You step on a stray pearl, its snow globes open, releasing the smell of 1920s dental antiseptic. Threads lash your ankles, they taste of static and burnt almonds. You bite one, it shrieks, goes limp. Time out for the sentient yarn. 10 paces away, the original knot has grown teeth, ivory splinters arranged in a crescent. That's new. Inching backward, you trip over a footstool that definitely wasn't there before. It vomits a skein of indigo wool. 18th century dyers used fermented urine to fix colors. The stench wafting off this bundle confirms it. You hurl the stool at the knot. It passes through like mist. The teeth click. A grandfather clock materializes. Its pendulum trembles, then chimes 17 times. Historians still argue whether that's normal. Your Apple Watch disagrees. The floor softens. Suddenly you're calf deep in suspiciously warm fleece. Bells toll in the distance, or maybe your sinuses. The walls contract again, squeezing the air from your lungs. Your thumb finds the original knot. It weeps viscous sap that hardens into sheet music. One phrase repeats in notation. Dissonance prohibited. Dissonance prohibited. Dissonance prohibited. You hum a B flat, the knot spasms. Plaster rains down, frosting your hair like cheap dandruff. 3 rats squeeze through a knothole, They're wearing lace collars. One doffs a tiny hat. Historians still argue whether Renaissance rodent fashion was satire or mental illness. Cute. You're out of snacks. This feels crucial. The thread suddenly slackens. Walls rebound to their original positions, mostly. One tilt remains, like the cottage suffered a minor stroke. The knot lies dormant, charred black, its hum reduced to tinnitus. Breath returns, along with the stink of wet sheep and existential regret. Your shadow peels off the wall again. This time it's cross-stitched. A pearl rolls into the hearth's ashes, cracking open to reveal a moth with Amelia Earhart's face. From the wreckage, one intact teacup remains. You sip its cold Earl Grey with a splash of motor oil. The final knot glows faintly under the table. You kick dust over it. Tomorrow's problem. The floorboards glow pulses like a faulty neon sign. You crouch, squinting at alphabet threads wriggling beneath the veneer. Latin capitals first. INPRINCIPIORATVERBVM before dissolving into cursive please. One looped dearest bleeds indigo wool. Your pinky brushes the groove. Fingertips come away stained with oxgall ink. Medieval scribes distilled that bitter gunk from cow livers. The stench clings like forgotten gym socks. A Y emerges, its tail coiling into the kill your darlings. Symbol editors love. You blink, the letter reshapes into a submarine, missing its periscope. Historians still argue whether Da Vinci's sketchbook Margara Sub was salvageable or pure fantasy. The thread hums. You resist the urge to ask for spoilers. Cobweb-thin filaments snake around your wrist. They spell dear occupant in papyrus font. Tacky choice. The O in occupant unravels, its fibers curl into a tiny life preserver. Your lungs ache. When did you stop breathing? 8-second inhale. Hold. 12-second exhale. Navy SEAL tactic works better underwater than in cursed cottages. The preserver inflates. It's now a rubber duck wearing a tricorn hat. Quackademic, the floorboard splinters. A flock of cues stampede past your ankles. Quokka-shaped cues. Adorable until they start nibbling your shoelaces. You kick free, they scatter, forming quis custodiet ipsos custodes. Under the credenza, Latin homework jokes never die. A soggy envelope materializes in your left pocket, sealed with oxblood wax. You crack it open, the paper disintegrates, leaving 3 copperplate words suspended in air. Burn this immediately. Could have saved a pigeon. The letters ignite. Their ash forms a hashtag. Overly dramatic epistles. Classic. Your shadow tugs eastward toward the loom squirming beneath moth-eaten drop cloths. Peel back the fabric. Shuttles weave with no hands. The warp. Census records from Pompeii. The weft. 17th century breakup letters. A single thread glows gold, Tutankhamun's marriage contract to Ankhesenamun. Mainstream fact incoming, they were half-siblings. Awkward dinner parties. You pluck a cerulean S. It purrs like a drugged cat. The floor tilts, suddenly your eye level, with a weave of Nazi apology letters. The thread sizzles. They were all postmarked Buenos Aires. Authentic. The cottage coughs up microfiche. Debate time. Historians still argue whether Hitler's stationery had that exact Wasserzeichen watermark. You drop the S, it shatters like sugar glass. Rain taps the window. Each droplet contains a floating A. They coalesce on the sill, spelling Antietam in Morse code. Too soon. A moth with Robert E. Lee's beard flutters by. You swat it with a cushion. The battle hymn of the Republic blares from the gramophone. Not helping, a threadbare U unfurls from the loom, crocheted from Trotsky's unpublished grocery lists. Lenin's allergy to cilantro, revolution, almost derailed. Quirky tidbit, Roman curse tablets often targeted bad bakers. You murmur panis malfactus. The U convulses, knitting itself into a baguette. Stale. The golden Tutankhamun thread snaps, half lodges under your thumbnail. Pain blooms, you suck the wound. Tastes of myrrh and Walmart parking lot. Spit. The saliva forms a tiny Rosetta Stone. French translation. Abandon hope, all ye who conjugate here. Maybe. A draft lifts the hair on your neck. The cottage exhales powdered vellum. You sneeze. Dust motes arrange into Gesundheit in Gothic script. Dank. The G peels off. It's a paper airplane now. Crash lands in a saucer of cold Earl Grey. Motor oil rainbows bloom. That sarcastic inner voice whispers, remember the Oxford comma war, eh? You don't. The loom spits out a scroll. It's your third grade apology note to Jimmy Petrovic. You drew devil horns on his yearbook photo, still guilty. The cottage melts the parchment into a frowny emoji. Harsh, the original glowing floorboard dims, its threads retreating like embarrassed crabs. One cursive, you lingers, calligraphy flawless. You reach, it frosts your fingertips, dissolves like snow on a radiator. Only a damp spot remains, or maybe you're crying. Nope, allergies. 3 knots pulse where the U vanished. They throb in iambic pentameter. Dab them with your sleeve. Ink bleeds through the fabric. Now your elbow reads ennui in braille. Pretentious. The grandfather clock chimes once. Its face shows the moon phases. Waning gibbous. 93% darkness. You kick the Persian rug, it billows, revealing embroidered flex tapes from the 1983 Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter protests. Workers write slogans in kanji silent stitches. Historians still argue whether those banners used machine sewn or hand-rolled thread. You yawn. The debate predates sliced bread. A skein of yarn rolls into your shin. It's Lincoln's Gettysburg, a dress cross-stitched with neon floss. 407 beers ago parody or drunk transcription. Hard to tell. The cottage hiccups. A button pops off your cardigan. Prioritize tomorrow. The final knot hums a lullaby in Morse code. Dash dot dash. Sleep now. Dash dot dash. Sleep. You press your palm to the threads, they're warm. Pythagoras believed vibrating strings could heal souls. Maybe tonight, just warm, the loom's final thread snaps. Its recoil stings your palms. Dust motes freeze mid-fall. The weaver's chair creaks empty. Her shawl slithers floorward, a dying octopus shedding sequin scales. You catch a whiff of bergamot and mildew, Victorian morning perfume, mixed with attic rot. No one mentions how grief stinks. A stitch pops near your ear sharp as a champagne cork. Silver threads writhe, spelling memento mori in cursive, two on the nose. The M dissolves, now it's mint mojito. Better. The cottage's air tastes of wet ash and spearmint. 10 paces left the hearth coughs up half-charred ledgers. 19th century funeral expenses, line items for tear collection vials, and orphaned top hats. Historians still argue whether Queen Victoria's mourning budget exceeded Denmark's annual GDP. You kick a spindle. It rolls into a cobweb strung with crochet hooks. Each barb glints, funeral veil needles from the 1854 weeping time. Mainstream fact time. That's when nearly 1,400 humans were sold in Georgia's largest slave auction. The hooks rust upon contact. Your soles grind oxidized flakes into the rug. A sneeze builds your sinuses flood with pollen from the weaver's last breath. Allergy attack incoming. You stifle it, eyeballs throbbing. Bad move. The Heldon sneeze ricochets through your skull, manifesting as a mini sonic boom. Window panes shiver. Their cracks form longitude lines. Now your head's a human globe. Spin it for tourism. The shawl coils around your ankle. Its fringe licks your skin. You stumble, knee denting the warp beam. Pain blooms. The loom groans in sympathy or mockery. Threads snap, donated silk from Marie Antoinette's beheading gown. Quirky tidbit. She complained about the itchiness minutes before the blade fell. Priorities. A sigh rattles the rafters, the cottage deflating like a punctured lung. Plaster drifts downward slow as confetti in a snow globe. You swipe a fingertip through the cloud. It writes finis on your skin. Rude. A moth lands on the S, wings edged in Prussian blue. From the hearth, a pocket watch clatters, its chain slithers like a brass eel. You pry it open, the face shows 2 hands melted together. Time of death. Always. The glass fogs, breath etching a phrase from Beckett. I can't go on. I'll go on, cheery. A cobweb brushes your neck, its sticky threads cling like regrets. You peel it off, strands stick to fingerprints. Evidence of trespassing. The cottage watches through nail-hole cracks in the wainscoting. Your pulse thrums loud as a telltale heart under floorboards. 3 threads rise from the ashes, braiding themselves midair. Gold, coal, bone. They hum the dies, eerie, off-key. Opera's not your thing. You snap the gold strand. It bleeds molten honey onto the rug. 17th century beekeepers called this liquid guilt. Sweetness with a side of oops. The hearth flares. Flames spit out a half-melted telegram. Stop. Cease. Desist. Too late. Embers rearrange into a winking emoji, carbonized smirk included. You prod it with a poker, ashes rise as a PDF disclaimer. Terms and conditions may apply. Always do. Wallpaper peels, revealing layers of flyers underneath. 1920s seance adds $2 per ghost chat. Bargain rates for dead presidents. You pick at a corner. Edgar Allan Poe's raven glares beneath. Never invoice, it croaks. Good advice. A cold spot materializes behind you. Classic haunting 101. You pivot, no one. Just your breath frosting the air. Words form memento viver. The ice cracks, slush spelling mint julep instead. Cottage loves its cocktails. A shard pricks your heel, karma for wearing socks indoors. The grandfather clock chimes 13. Its pendulum swings sideways. Time spills out gears and springs puddling like molten glass. You step back, souls imprinting in the horological goo. Seconds ooze between toes. Tussaud's wax meets quicksand. Every step forward costs 10 minutes. A thump overhead, the attic's trapdoor yawns. A rope ladder tumbles down, its rungs tied with sailor's knots. You tug, it's anchored to nothing. Wind whistles through the gaps, carrying a raspy whisper. Didn't your mother warn you? Yes, always. Up you climb, the ladder sags with phantom weight. 17 rungs, 94 splinters. The attic smell punches first, dried lavender and rat venom. Light filters through warped shutters, bars of tarnished gold on heaped trunks. You pry one open, it's stuffed with unsigned love letters, all addressed to you. Handwriting matches your third-grade self. Curse of the time loop epistles. The top envelope bleeds ink. P.S. Sorry about the tadpoles. Jimmy Petrovic's backyard pond incident resurfaces. Guilt's a clingy X. You stuff the letters back. They burst into mayflies. Exit stage left. The far wall shutters, plaster crumbling to reveal a ship's porthole. You press your face to the glass. Waves hammer an oil-slick sea. No, it's the attic floorboards undulating. Mal-demasoning. A lifebelt floats by, embroidered with Titanic, property of J. Astor. Too soon. Dust mites swirl, forming a faceless figure by the steamer trunk. Its hand extends, palm cradling a smudged daguerreotype. You squint, toddler you at Versailles. No memory of that trip. The figure dissolves, photo flutters downward. You catch it, the image shifts. Now it's the cottage, before the rot. Footsteps echo below, staccato clicks of a metronome, set too fast. Peer through floor cracks. A shadow folds origami cranes from sheet music. Each crane flutters, ink notes raining onto the loom. Debussy's Clair de Lune reinterpreted as a funeral march. Spot on for the vibe. Your pocket vibrates. The rescued you thread throbs like a chloroformed bee. Pull it out, frost spreads across your palm. The thread etches vel est posse into your skin. Latin's overkill. Rubbing your hand, the phrase smears into Velcro pesto. Doesn't help. The attic trapdoor slams your back in the weaving room. Dust resettles, no trace of a scent. The loom lies dormant, its shuttle fossilized mid-throw. You exhale your breath, stitches a silver thread between lips and wood. Pythagoras was half right about music. Vibrations linger. A final pop. The weaver's thimble rolls under the credenza. You fish it out, still warm, engraved inside. Measure twice, cut once, weep endlessly. Solid advice. The thimble fills with brine, salt water, or tears. Dip a pinky. Tastes of the North Sea and dental regret. Moonlight bleeds through the window. Its beam bisects the dead loom. One side glows, weave intact. The other crumbles, threads dissolving like sugar in rain. You stand on the border, shoulders split between preservation and decay. SCHR Cyrillic letter 4E7 DINGER house guest. The cottage's walls exhale their timbers, groaning into slumber. Plaster cracks form a lullaby's sheet music. You hum the first 3 bars. Floorboards harmonize in F-sharp minor. Your shadow stretches, stitching itself to the weaver's empty chair. Detach it tomorrow. Dawn licks the horizon, gold threads fraying into blue. You sink into the rag rug. Its fibers smell of lanolin and lost causes. The last stitch pops, a sound like twisting a bubblegum wrapper. Silence follows. Not empty, full as a held breath. Gears click to life in the silence, a chorus of tiny ratchets gnawing at the quiet. Your soles sink into dew-heavy grass as you climb the hill, each step releasing petrichor, perfumed with machine oil. The sheep stand frozen, wool crusted with tarnish, copper keyholes glinting along their flanks. Wind twists through their gears, a hollow imitation of bleeding. Historians love debating whether 18th century clockwork menageries inspired Mary Shelley, but these ones lack Frankenstein's charm. The nearest sheep shudders, its rusted jaw creaks open. Instead of teeth, a pendulum swings where its tongue should loll. You press a palm to its side, tarnished wool flakes away like dried skin. 16th century Venetian engineers once built a mechanical lion that coughed up flowers for French kings. This feels less diplomatic. A key protrudes from its spine, you twist it. The clockwork whirs 7 half-hearted ticks before stopping. Overwound, says the wind, or maybe the sheep. Hard to tell. Another keyhole winks at you from under its tail. No etiquette manuals covered this scenario. You crank it counterclockwise. Gears grind, the beast lurches forward, shedding cogs like pellet droppings. Austrian Empress Sissi allegedly kept clockwork nightingales. Their songs drove her parrots insane. You sympathize. Copper eyelids snap open, glass pupils reflect your face, stretched into a wonky oval. The sheep lowers its head, gears meshing with a sound like a jaw cracking walnuts. You step back, heel catching on a gear-studded turd. Clockwork digestion, jokes right themselves. The sheep advances, its ticking syncs with your pulse. Pharmaceutical pamphlets from 1902 warned about mechanical tachycardia induced by automatons. Seems legit. Moonlight leaks into its keyholes, casting tiny fretwork shadows on the grass. You spot a serial number stamped under its ear, XVIXI, the MXIV. The Great War started that year. No coincidence. A gear slips loose, plinking into the dirt. You pocket it, instant regretty when your thigh starts vibrating. Prague's astronomical clock once jammed for a century because a single pin broke. You've got 12 minutes max. The flock stirs. 60 pairs of glass eyes click toward you. Their copper keys turn on their own, unwinding with squeals that could liquefy marrow. You count ticks between heartbeats, 3, then 2, then syncopated. Not ideal. A sheep's belly hatch springs, open, spilling moth-eaten punch cards across the slope. Jacquard looms used similar systems. You're basically facing textile-adjacent zombies. One card lands sticky side up. Its pattern spells run in binary dots. Cute. The sheep charge, stampeding with the grace of wind-up toys on meth. Their wool smokes. Friction threatens spontaneous combustion. You vault over a crumbling stone wall, palms scraping lichen. The flock rams the barrier, gears flying like shrapnel. A cog embeds itself in your sleeve, free souvenir. Silence falls, their springs spent, keys dangling limp. You pry the cog loose. It's engraved with Louis XVI's profile. Historians still argue whether Marie Antoinette's hairspring collection funded revolutionary guillotines. The sheep collapse, now just scrap metal and mothball-scented fleece. Dawn pinks the horizon, their ticking replaced by birdsong. Fake gears, real sunrise. Wind gusts, stirring the punch cards into a mini tornado. They settle into a semicircle holes, aligning to form a shepherd's crook constellation. You sneeze. The vibration topples the pattern. 5 o'clock shadow creeps across the hill, chased by your own exhausted sigh. Clockwork guts glitter in first light, pretty in a post-apocalyptic way. A final gear twitches in your pocket. Its teeth nibble the fabric. You flick it onto the grass. It rolls downhill, tracing a path through the dew. At the bottom, the gear pauses, then sprouts 8 spindly legs. Mechanical spider? Nope, just a daddy longlegs hitching a ride. The cottage windows darken, one purposeful blink. Nap time. Your shadow stretches toward the valley, stitched to the hill by threads of early light. Each step home crushes time underfoot, herbal confetti for surviving another haunted dawn. The last sheep's key jangles in your pocket, still warm. Maybe it'll fit that broken music box in the attic. Tomorrow's problem. The attic key slides home. Its teeth kiss the lock with a metallic sigh. Pine resin and neglect coat your tongue as you push inside, air thick with suspended dust motes. A mantel clock dominates the room, its gilt face scarred by claw marks. Each pendulum swing slices seconds thinner than onion skin. Historians note medieval monks invented mechanical clocks to track prayer hours. This one's tracking something hungrier. Something whimpers behind the coal chute. You inch forward, floorboards erupting in splintered protests. The whine pitches higher, a dental drill serenading a theremin. Your shadow stretches toward the sound, then recoils. Out slinks a canine-shaped absence, a void with teeth. Its jaws snap, showering the floor with half-digested minutes. One lands on your boot, still twitching. An 1894 tabloid claimed Tesla built a time-chewing hound to correct factory lateness. They fired it for eating paychecks. The beast yawns, revealing clockwork molars sharpened on centuries. Your pocket vibrates, that stolen sheep's key buzzing like a deranged cicada. The hound's ears swivel toward the sound. You freeze, aware that 13th century Mongolian timekeepers used wolf skulls as sundials. This feels less ceremonial. It lunges, teeth grazing your sleeve. You backpedal into a spinning wheel, spokes impaling a wool-tufted hour. The hound pauses to gnaw the trapped time, savoring it like marrow. Victorian spiritualists swore ghosts avoided rooms with striking clocks, too much temporal indigestion. You wish this thing were that picky. Moonlight leaks through a crack, illuminating the mantel clock's innards. Cogs spin backward, springs coil into impossible knots. The hound winds its whimper, spiderwebbing the glass face. A fracture creeps toward the numeral VIII. Soviet scientists once froze dogs' hearts for transplant experiments. Their barks reportedly echoed in recipients' chests. You're starting to miss clockwork sheep. Key still humming, you lob it into the coal chute. The hound pounces, jaws snapping iron hinges. Historians still argue whether ancient sundials measured time or just provided shade for naps. As debates go, this feels moot. You scramble onto the mantel knees, sinking into velvet padding. The hound leaps, teeth closing on the pendulum. Brass bends, time stutters. Your hand brushes the clock's face. It's warmer than skin. A gear slips loose, engraved with XVI in florid script. Louis XIV's watchmakers pioneered chime silence mechanisms to avoid waking the king. Should have built a hound muzzle instead. The beast regurgitates a mangled minute, stained with something like licorice. You kick the spinning wheel. Its spindle impales the hound's shadow. The creature howls, disgorging a hairball of tangled timelines. 1793 spirals into 1969 damp with stomach acid. A pocket watch plops out, its hands spinning like dervishes. Prague's Jewish quarter supposedly buried 7 defective timekeepers under the cemetery. Their ticks still warp local dreams. The hound retreats, licking tarnished paws. You pocket the vomited watch. It's keeping perfect time with your galloping pulse. Moonlight shifts. The mantel clock's cracks seal themselves. The pendulum resumes its metronome lullaby, hypnotic as a railroad track heartbeat. Across the room, coal chute hinges glint with fresh bite marks. Dawn licks the attic's single window. The hound dissolves into shadow dust. Its final whimper etches your name on the clock face, Rorschach style. You descend the ladder, each rung creaking a century older. The stolen key winks from the chute, now fused into an iron canine tooth. Time crunches underfoot as you cross the yard. Dawn painting the cottage, walls the color of chewed minutes. That mangled pocket watch warms your hip, ticking in sync with the of apple help service leaf above. Somewhere behind you, gears yawn, jaws stretch, and time bends its neck for the blade. The kitchen's cast iron kettle exhales, its spout puffing steam that curls into half moons. You blink, those vapor arcs hover like Cheshire cat smiles before dissolving. A ceramic mug materializes in your hands, chip on the rim, humming a G sharp. Inside, swirls, chamomile and cedar, suspended leaves spelling out drink me in Sogdian script. Historians agree the Silk Road spread tea culture west, conveniently ignoring the yak butter drownings. One sip floods your mouth with forest mulch and apologies. Roots squirm under your tongue, hickory tendrils probing tooth gaps. A 1928 tabloid reported a Welsh grocer who brewed tea so strong it regrew his hair and dissolved his fillings. Your molars feel suspiciously smooth. The steam thickens, twisting into miniature caravans, crossing your knuckles. You count 16 Bactrian camels, the 18th's legs fuse into centipede segments. A thumbprint on the mugworms. It tastes of bergamot and dread. The cabinet creaks, open jars of dried thyme spill across the counter. Minutes crinkle like dead hornet wings. Hours drip honey slow. You pocket a fistful of seconds, their edges pricking your palm. Mongolic shamans once used compressed tea bricks as currency. 3 cakes bought a decent horse. The roots in your throat whisper you've been undercharged. Across the table, a linen napkin unfolds into an archipelago. Steeped leaves clot its valleys, forming shadow puppets of forgotten arguments. One silhouette resembles your 3rd grade teacher, its hands shaping the word procrastination in semaphore. Historians still debate whether British tea clippers smuggled more opium than Earl Grey. The napkin shivers, dumping a monsoon onto your lap. Damp and unamused, you wring out your sleeve. 12 soggy hours plop into the sink, draining with a glottal gurgle. The roots under your tongue constrict, forcing a hiccup that smells of burnt toast. A teaspoon clatters its bowl, reflecting a woman carding thunderclouds. You recall Victorian Tarum's band mirrors. Afraid patrons would see their souls steeped too long. A knothole in the table yawns, disgorging a thimble of liquid twilight. You dip a pinky. The stuff clings like petroleum-based regret. A voice purrs from the sugar bowl. 5 lumps for your last good memory. Its tone suggests it's haggled before. The roots in your mouth braid themselves into a gag. A fact floats up. Ottoman tea glasses were designed to fit snugly in cavalry saddle holders. You're starting to miss the time-chewing hound. The napkin lunges, soggy fabric smothering your nostrils. Its embroidered peonies writhe, petals peeling back to reveal shark teeth. You bite through the linen, 18 thread count cotton, dissolving into papyrus grit. The taste lingers, ancient ink and library mildew. When archaeologists unsealed Ramses II's tomb, They found chamomile pollen in his lungs. The roots in your throat snicker. It wasn't pollen. Moonlight slants through a salt-crusted window, etching the word sleep in tea stains. Each letter squirms a worm dipped in Earl Grey. Your eyelids sink, anchored by fermented seconds. Thatched roofs in Yuan Dynasty, China, were insulated with tea dregs. Raccoons went mad, licking the rafters. The roots tighten, juice flooding your sinuses with pine resin. You stumble toward the hearth, kicking over a caddy of stolen dawns. Bottled sunrises roll across the floor, their corks popping in protest. The fireplace yawns, embers spelling "come closer" in cursive ash. Heat licks your shins, your shadow curdles into burnt umber. A 1930s psychic claimed firelight reveals one's past life career, yours, apparently involved herding electrified eels. The roots snap, their ends withering into oblivion. Your gums throb, echoing the cottage's hidden pulse. A teaspoon spirals down the chimney, trailing a parachute of black silk. Historians still argue whether the Boston Tea Party targeted caffeine addicts or tax evasion. The spoon lands handle up, vibrating at the frequency of unanswered text. You pocket it, metal branding your thigh with a treble clef birthmark. The kettle screeches a sound that cracks the nearest jar of yesterday's. Pickled hours balloon, filling the room with brine and déjà vu. You inhale a memory of tricycle races down a pier, salt wind chasing cotton candy screams. A root fragment flosses your molars, sparking a taste of copper and goodbyes. Dawn leaks under the door, its rays cutting the chaos into manageable shadows. The mug in your hands gone cold, its tea leaves spelling almost. Somewhere upstairs, the mantel clock coughs, your hip pocket buzzes, that vomited pocket watch synchronizing with the drip-drip of the faucet. The roots are silent now, retreated into some mucosal trench. You flick a bottled sunrise at the ceiling. It shatters into 97 false dawns. Their light catches the steam, now twisting into a helix of unanswered questions. The last vaporous strand brushes your eyelid. It smells of bergamot and the word wait. In the sink, a single tea leaf floats, curled like a fetal question mark. The fetal question mark in the sink trembles, uncurling into a child's pinky finger. You watch it bloom, a girl of maybe 7, materializing upside down from the drain. Her hair floats in slow motion, strands defying gravity like Medusa's less ambitious cousin. Historians gossip about Babylonian star catalogers naming constellations after pantry items, hence the cheese grater forgotten by modern charts. She plucks a cluster above your head, Orion's belt droplets spattering the counter in hissed steam. Your elbow knocks a jar of cardamom pods. They roll into the Pleiades puddle and dissolve. The girl frowns, her smock stitching rearranging itself into censored library maps. A 1930s astronomer swore the Southern Cross winked at him. His peers blamed peyote-laced tea. She yanks Scorpius by the stinger. Its tail segment pops free like a champagne cork. You catch it out of reflex. The sting ignites a childhood memory of stepping on a sea urchin. Moonlight leaks through her, silvering the breadcrumb trail of stolen constellations on the floor. Historians still argue whether the Nazca lines were star maps or ancient festival confetti. Her thumb smears Sirius into a greasy comet. It streaks across the dish towel, hanging listlessly by the sink. 12 stitches unravel, exposing the fabric's dreams of being a parachute. You almost warn her, but your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth. The taste of frozen astronomy journals. She hums as she works, the tune stolen from a music box at a garage sale. Cygnus collapses under her fingers, its swan song hissing through the teakettle's dented spout. A Victorian widow once sued her neighbor for stealing the Big Dipper's ladle to stir soup. The girl pockets Ursa Minor, its little bear paw print stamped on her collarbone. Cold seeps through your socks, the floorboards now void damp and squeaking like injured bats. One star clings to her eyelash. You recognize it as the one you wished on at 16. She licks it off her pupils, dilating into black holes, swallowing the kitchen's residual glow. 18th century sailors used to blame confused narwhals for Polaris going missing. Hence, all those shipwreck ballads. Your breath fogs, crystallizing into a miniature Milky Way above the toaster. She blows it apart, snowflakes settling in your hair like powdered chandelier debris. The child kicks over the salt shaker grains, forming a quicksand pit for Gemini's twins. Their legs pedal uselessly, sinking into sodium oblivion. You grab a ladle fish outcaster before Pollux drowns in seasoning. She methodically peels apart Cassiopeia's hairdo, curling individual stars into hairpin booby traps. A 1947 tabloid claimed Marilyn Monroe had Andromeda tattooed on her thigh. The photos too blurry to confirm. Your shadow tries to escape out the cat flap. She nails it down with Draco's fang. Neon green ichor oozes, the linoleum bubbles where it lands. Historians whisper about Egyptian King Sneferu's pyramid architects using starlight as mortar, hence all the collapse jokes. The girl folds Ursa Major into a paper airplane. It crashes into your forehead with a wet splat. She's running out of sky to dismantle her pockets, sagging with compressed galaxies. The darkness left behind feels cheaper. A discount store blackout curtain full of static holes. You glimpse something moving in the gaps. Maybe teeth, maybe just the cottage settling. A Balkan folk tale insists the first eclipse happened when a giant moth ate the moon's embroidery. Her hands slow, grasping at phantom, stars no longer there. Night clings to the rafters, a thin membrane pulsing with stolen light indigestion. You offer her the ladle still dripping with Gemini's tears. She knocks it aside with a yawn. Somewhere, a lighthouse keeper curses the suddenly empty sky, his beacon now just a fancy flashlight. The girl collapses into the dish rack, her hair snagging on fork tines. Extracted constellations leak from her cuffs, forming a glowing puddle beneath the lettuce spinner. Historians will spend centuries debating whether this counts as cosmic tax, evasion, or Chinese letter art therapy. She sucks her thumb, the last flicker of vega dissolving on her molars. You drape a cheesecloth over her, its moth holes aligning into a crude map of nowhere. Dawn scratches at the windows, too weak to penetrate the voidsheen coating the glass. The child snores, each exhale flaking off crumbs of the crab nebula. Your pinky finds the star she missed, wedged between the cutting board and a jar of rancid honey. It burns colder than regret, brighter than the exit sign over a theater's locked door. You swallow it whole, the aftertaste lingering like a dare whispered through prison bars. Autumn has gnawed the oak outside to its bones. One parchment-thin leaf clings to the highest branch. Its veins pulse gold, each capillary carrying the loom's final exhale. You press your palm to the cold window pane. The glass hums a G-sharp minor, the same key Viking mothers used to croon iron-hardened lullabies. Frost etches itself across your knuckles, a braille map of abandoned bird migration routes. 18th century herbalists swore sleeping beneath oak leaves cured melancholy, though they probably confused drowsiness for recovery. The leaf twitches, a sparrow's ghost perches on its edge. Their combined weight should snap the stem, but some ancient carpentry holds fast. You count the threads binding leaf to wood, 17 shimmering strands thinner than a widow's patience. Arctic explorers once wove their own shrouds from lichen fibers. It kept the frostbite artistic. The sparrow pecks at the threads, each snap releasing a piano chord from the cottage rafters. Wind rises, the leaf flutters like a failing heartbeat. You wrestle the window open, your breath plumes into the dusk. Cinnamon rolls left cooling on the sill, now glazed with starlight and November's bony fingers. A 1920s botanist claimed dying leaves sing in ultrasonic frequencies. His recording turned out to be a tea kettle. The last thread snaps, the leaf spirals down its shadow, multiplying into a flock of origami cranes. You catch it mid-descent, the edges slice your thumb. Blood beads bloom, blackcurrant dark, smelling of ink and unkept promises. Medieval scribes used oak gall stains for manuscripts. Their prayers still ferment in Vatican vaults. The leaf crumbles, its powder forming a compass, rose on your tongue. North tastes of chimney smoke and wolf musk. South whispers of lemon groves choking on their own thorns. Something groans in the loom room, warp threads snapping like overstretched sinew. You follow the sound, bare feet freezing against floorboards. The great frame shudders, its shuttle frozen mid-pass. Tapestry scenes fray at the edges, nights dissolving into charcoal smudges, ocean waves unraveling into loose thread. 19th century weavers believed their looms absorbed fragments of their souls. The Industrial Revolution's first orphans haunt textile mills to this day. The leaf's powder itches beneath your skin, translucent roots sprouting from your cut. They tangle, with the loom's dangling threads, forming macrame knots that glow like swamp gas. You try to hum the sparrow's piano chords. Your voice cracks into something jagged. Historians still argue whether Mozart's Wiegenlied was cribbed from an Appalachian death ballad. The similarities curdle milk either way. Out the window, the naked oak splits down its center. Amber sap oozes, forming a sticky puddle of trapped fireflies and thwarted apologies. Your shadow detaches, crawls into the tree's hollow, emerges cradling a birchbark cradle. Inside, a single acorn pulsates, its ridges mimicking your thumb's bleeding grooves. Siberian shamans used to stitch babies into trees during famines. 3 generations later, the bark would spit out full-grown accountants. Moonlight catches the loom's last intact thread. It vibrates, a low F resonating in your molars. You pluck it, the note shaking dust moths from the rafters. They swirl into a frenzy, forming the vague shape of a lullaby's sheet music. One moth alights on your ear, its wings buzzing the opening bars of All the Pretty Little Horses. The cradle's acorn cracks, a green shoot punches through your palm, buds blooming into tiny silver bells. Wind rushes through the hollow oak, playing the bells like a panpipe. The sound makes your marrow ache, a homesickness for places you've never buried loved ones. You press the unraveling tapestry to your chest, thready battlefield hymns and citrus grove dirges merging with your pulse. The last bell falls silent, its petals wilting into a liquid too thick for tears. Dawn arrives gray and wheezing frosted grass, snapping under its weight. The loom lies dormant, its skeleton draped in cobwebs, and the faint smell of bergamot. You kneel, press your ear to its cold frame, and hear the leaf's final sigh stretched over centuries. Somewhere beyond the hills, a child coughs, a muffled sound like a star collapsing into flannel. Your shadow still wears the shape of that final cough, ridged like bark, pressed into spoiled dough. The loom's skeleton creaks, its empty warp beams gape like ribcages picked clean by crows. You kneel too close, cobwebs snap against your cheeks, each strand humming with the aftertaste of lullabies. Ottoman silk weavers once worked blindfolded, their fingertips reading patterns as braille hymns. But this loom eats touch. Splinters fleck your palms. Each sliver glows faintly, spelling syllables in a language that died with paper lanterns. Dust motes swirl into the name's first letter, a thorny thorn that pricks your retina. 14th century guilds paid leech artists to bleed bad ink from forged tapestries. The red stains still debate in Florence museums. You try to vocalize the rune your larynx seizes, as if the cottage itself objects to the truth. A loose thread dangles above you pull, and the rafters vomit a cascade of moth-eaten samite. It wraps your legs, cool as a pharaoh's death shroud, staining your knees indigo with Nile mud. 3 warped floorboards form a crude mouth, the gaps between them widening into a jawbone scream. You press your ear to the splinters, hear the clatter of tea cups in a Viennese salon. 1805 Metternich's spies wove cipher codes into curtain tassels. Napoleon's mapmakers mistook them for floral patterns. The jawbone snaps shut, taking a lock of hair your scalp, stinging with the phantom weight of powdered wigs. Now the walls bulge, plaster cracking into topography. A mountain range erupts across the hearth foothills, swallowing the fire-poker glacial valleys, birthing icicles that drip lukewarm brine. Historians still argue whether medieval Mappa Mundi creators thought oceans literally boiled at the world's edge. The cartographers took that secret to plague pits. You lick a melted icicle, the salt burns like unconfessed adultery, your tongue swelling with cathedral blueprints. The true name's second letter emerges, an O sizzling through the air, its scent equal parts lavender and gutted mackerel. You scribble it in dust, the lines wriggle into earthworms, then into Gutenberg-type slugs. They crawl up your arm, each metal belly, imprinting a backward psalm. Your teeth chatter, enamel striking enamel, playing Morse code snippets from the Titanic's final moments. Something winks beneath the loom, a glass eye filmed with centuries of candle smoke. When you pry it free, pupils bloom across the surface, a fractal swarm staring back. 17 servants once embroidered Henry VII's codpiece with glowing nightingale feathers. The threads later strangled a treasonous earl. The eye rolls into a mouse hole plink, plink, plink down into a cistern of half-remembered blame. Now the ceiling sags, its beams groaning under centuries of withheld confessions. Plaster rains down as haiku fragments, 5 syllables, 7, 5 each sharp as a guillotine's tweet. You catch one stanza, it melts into your palm, leaving a scar shaped like Kobayashi Isa's missing molar. North Korean state poets still mimic his style for tractor manuals. This fact helps no one. The final letter arrives as a vibration, not a shape, rattling your fillings into a perfect A440. Your ribs become tuning forks, resonating with the exact pitch of Krakatoa's last gasp. You try to cough the notes into order. They emerge as a wet tango from a Weimar brothel. Red ledger entries float on your breath, compound interest for a debt paid in widows' fingernails. When you whisper the full name, it emerges backward, a palindrome that loops like a noose. The walls snap closer, splinters grazing your earlobe, sawdust filling the space where courage should be. 18 generations of weavers etched their fears, hear each curse compounding like rogue calculus. Your left pupil dissolves, replaced by a miniature jacquard loom, already weaving your obituary in nettle thread. The cottage inhales, your clothes flatten against brittle bones, air thick with pulverized bedtime stories. You glimpse the name's shadow, not on walls, but in the absences between dust motes. A child laughs beyond the hills. The sound syncs with your failing heartbeat. 2 clocks set to the wrong apocalypse. No epiphanies, hear only the hiss of thread meeting scissors, the gulp of a throat swallowing its own ghost. Your knees give, the floorboards catch you, their knots forming the face of a woman who might have been your third cousin, twice removed in another life census. Chimney bricks rearrange, spelling the name correctly in Morse code. But you've forgotten how to read anything but vertigo. A thimble rolls into the hearth, its silver melting into a puddle of half-baked apologies. When the last drip solidifies, it holds the reflection of a loom that never existed, singing in your grandmother's voice. You close your eyes, the only rebellion left. Walls contract, a vice made of splintered lullabies, porcelain dolls ground into sawdust, love letters folded into firewood. Somewhere a child coughs again, or maybe it's just the cottage clearing its throat of your inconvenient heartbeat. Dawn leaks through cracks, not light, but the liquid silence between radio stations. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, adhered by honey and unresolved gerundives. The name lingers not as sound, but as the shape a moth's wings make mid-dissolve, a shrug inked in kerosene. Ebony pins strike without warning, needle tips colder than February window panes. Your shadow crumples, a discarded glove, as the first dart mends its frayed wrist. 16th century couturiers stitched treason notes into Queen Elizabeth's gown hems. Their tiny backstitches outlasted her bones. You try to jerk away. The third needle pins your heels silhouette to the floorboards, anchored like a ship in a whiskey bottle. Bent shadows writhe beneath you, stitching themselves into a stranger's profile. The second pin nicks your outline's jaw sharp as the scalpel that carved Mozart's death mask. Did you know Victorians photographed ghosts using thread spool cameras? The developing fluid reeked of spilled seance wine and regret. A dozen needles swarm now, their eyes gleam like rotary dials on forgotten phones. Your shadow's chest sprouts embroidered ribs, each stitch matched to your own rapid inhalations. Historians still argue whether medieval surgeons used silk sutures to close crusaders' wounds, or just spider webs and hubris. The answer pricks your thumb, a ruby bead swallowed by hungry floorboards. Your outlines left-hand rebels, fingers knitting a noose from loose darkness. You remember Babylonian astronomers mapping fate in knotted cords, each celestial event tied with librarian precision. The needles hiss approval, their rhythm sinks with a steam loom's ghost thrumming beneath the cottage. 3 pins crucify your shadow's throat, silencing the scream you haven't voiced yet. 18th century mill workers' children played with shuttles dipped in sheep fat to slide faster. You taste lanolin, or maybe mortality, as your silhouette's mouth sews itself shut. Something unravels in your periphery, a thread of pre-dawn light severed by scissors. Your repaired shadow rises, stiff as a Cromwell-era doublet, and curtsies with mocking grace. The needles retreat, leaving your true form gaunt, stripped of all but essential darkness. The floor belches your abandoned shadow bit, a puddle of crude oil whispering unsent postcards. 1893, Parisian taxidermists used hat pins to pose extinct songbirds, their glass eyes still weep cellulose tears. You reach to reclaim it. The puddle recoils, now shaped like your first kiss's expiration date. Dawn's first proper ray skewers the room, needles melt into liquid typewriter keys. Your shadow staggers, ink bleeding from fresh seams, leaving Rorschach stains that mirror your sternum's fractures. The last pin trembles, then plunges into the bricks, sealing tonight's silence into the mortar's fossil record. When you finally blink, the floor holds only a single ebony sliver. It hums a lullaby from the Lancashire cotton famine, each note weighted with hungry looms. Your knees creak upward, the room indifferent, as moth wings brush the nape of your twice-mendied shadow. You kneel at the well's mossy lip, stone worn smooth as a Roman hypocaust tile. 18th century Persian engineers built wind catchers to cool water underground. Their desert-swallowing qanats birthed mirages. Your fingertips brush the rope. Hemp fibers shed whispers about your third-grade playground humiliation. The bucket sways a drunkard's waltz partner, its iron rim chewed by thirsty decades. Muddy liquid laps below, reflecting a face that isn't yours. 7 freckles swim clockwise, arranging themselves into the Big Dipper's forgotten twin. Historians still argue whether medieval monks used dream diaries to predict plagues or just bad mutton. You crank the handle. Its screech carves initials into your eardrums. The bucket rises weeping water thick as uncooked egg whites. 14 tadpoles dart through the sludge, their tails spelling beware in Etruscan. Did you know Tudor kitchens stored nightmares in butter churns? They curdled faster during Lent. A pollywog leaps landing cold as a guillotine blade against your collarbone. You dip a hand, the liquid clings like orphaned spider silk. 16th century Venetian glassmakers swore dreams could temper crystal. Their furnace prayers still scorch library margins. The water coats your wrist, itching with unfired pottery's memory. Your pulse thrums 96 beats per minute, syncopated with the well's damp heartbeat. The surface ripples, showing a banquet hall where shadow guests slurp broth from your childhood shoes. A vinegar eel swims through your reflection's left pupil, writing runes, only cataract eyes read. Experts think Carthaginian generals soaked arrowheads in nightmare well silt. Their toxins still haunt Sicilian soil. You drink, regret floods your molars, tasting of pencil shavings and unkept promises. 5 droplets escape, sizzling through wood sorrel like tiny meteorites. Your ankles sink, roots knitting a cage from nursery rhymes sung backward. The bucket handle snaps. Its rusty fracture mirrors the scar above your knee. Shapes coil beneath the water, quill pens nibbled by insomnia-addled dormice. A catfish surfaces, whiskers braided with 18th century love letters. Its gills wheeze a Neapolitan ballad about drowned telegraph operators. You try to scream, your tongue unfurls as papyrus, inscribed with shipping forecasts for the Styx. Lightning fractures the clouds, illuminating 7 stone steps spiraling into the well's gullet. Archaeologist Agatha Fitzmorton vanished here in 1912. Her last journal entry smeared with mulberry jam. Your left foot descends, cold seeping through sock threads woven from moth cocoons. The second step cracks, revealing a honeycomb of watch gears and dried tears. Third step, a snake sheds its skin into your mother's handwriting. Fourth, your shoelaces knot themselves, using sailors' hitches from decommissioned whalers. Fifth step, floods warm as a slaughtered sheep's belly. Sixth step, sprouts thorns, each barb a museum needle guarding stolen feathers. The seventh step dissolves, plunging you into water that sings in the extinct Norn tongue. Your lungs balloon, filled with unspun flax, and the screams of discontinued porcelain dolls. Above the well's mouth shrinks to a keyhole framing Ursa Major's missing paw. Something brushes your calf, a carp wearing Galileo's death mask. Its scales peel away, each revealing a ticket stub to your own funeral. Historians still debate if Viking navigators brewed dream mead from fermented well lichen, their longships steered by narcoleptic ravens. Darkness thickens, pressed wool soaked in kerosene and lullabies. Your thumbnail glows, bioluminescent fungus stolen from glowworms' divorce proceedings. A current drags you deeper, past eels juggling your kindergarten report cards. The carp coughs, expelling a cameo portrait melting into typewriter keys. You grab one. The W stings like a hornet, nursed on spoiled milk. 26 letters later your palms spell oblivion in braille blisters. The well shudders, spitting you onto damp grass as the cottage door slams. Dawn leaks through the roof's missing shingles, each ray a needle threading due into conspiracy theories. Your clothes drip hieroglyphs that evaporate before forming their first verb. The last tadpole winks, its tail fin dissolving into a comma on an unwritten page. Black feathers rustle, a crow lands on the cottage's crooked weather vane. Its beak clicks, a sound like Victorian taxidermists, tweezers probing glass eyes. Archaeologists found bronze scissors in Celtic chieftains' graves, blades sharp enough to cut through whispered lies. The bird extends one wing, midnight forged shears dangling from a claw. Their edge gleams with 13 oil lamps worth of borrowed light. Historians still argue whether pharaohs, architects hired crows to plumb pyramid passages. It croaks, voice steeped in overbrewed Assam tea. You reach palm up like a debtor awaiting judgment. The scissors grow heavier, each ounce pulled from Bering Sea shipwrecks, rotting cargo manifests. A cold draft swirls, carrying the scent of a Leipzig print shop, burning forbidden folktales. Your thumb grazes the left blade. It whispers the chemical formula for disappearing ink. 19th century stenographers ate crowquill nibs to absorb their bosses' secrets, their bones turned brittle as shorthand. The right blade thrums, an off-key rendition of an Estonian mining dirge. The crow tilts its head, one eye reflecting your face, the other a Sovietera crossword, missing 14 clues. You squeeze the handles, frostbite stinging your fingerprints into oblivion. 16th century duelists believed scissors could sever jealousy's umbilical cord. Most bled out mid-snip. The cottage walls lean closer, rafters creaking with the weight of unasked questions. A feather drifts down, its veins spell murmuration in Morse code against your cheek. The crow hops onto your shoulder, talons pricking through wool like acupuncture needles sourced from purgatory. Its caw vibrates your molars, a frequency known to crack frost-fair ice wine bottles. You raise the shears toward a loose thread above the hearth. A single snip could unravel the Bayeux Tapestry's lesser-known sequel. Slow breaths fog the blades, each exhalation etching a Roman aqueduct's blueprints. 5 droplets of your sweat fall, sizzling into steam shaped like Descartes' lost parrot. Chews, hisses the crow. Its tongue forks into a double helix of smoke and spruce resin. Moonlight catches the scissors for half a heartbeat. They become the hands of the Mary Celeste's stopped chronometer. Your pulse races, 79 beats per minute, counting down to a choice written in wet tea leaves. The crow's third eyelid slides shut, a pale leather curtain drawn over your last chance to hesitate. Wind howls through the chimney, throat full of cremated love letters and cinnamon. You cut the thread. Silence splits like a pomegranate struck by a slaver's whip. The crow dissolves into 42 ink blots, each reciting haikus about eclipsed loyalties. Scissors clatter, blades burying themselves in oak flooring grown from Napoleon's confiscated desk. Your ears pop pressure, equalizing with the gasp of a drowned bathysphere. Above the mantel, a new tapestry blooms. It shows you stranding Theseus in his own labyrinth, using Ariadne's thread to crochet a hammock for Icarus' wings. The crow's final caw echoes, a dismissal bell for librarians who categorize regrets by dew point. You kneel, palms pressed to the cold floor where shadows pool like spilled electoral ink. Dawn's first light licks the scissors' handles. They crumble into magnetized anthracite. Some say Charles Dickens carried a crow's mold in his pocket watch. Its ticking synced to Miss Havisham's wedding cake rot. You pocket a single feather, its spine bent at the exact angle of your childhood sled's fatal jump. The cottage exhales, windows rattling with the aftertaste of cut strings. Somewhere, a loom resumes its sleep. The hearth's dying coals paint the walls apricot their warmth, a fading rumor. You run fingers over the moth-holed tapestry, childhood's woven chronicle, now riddled with flutter-winged voids. Each puncture exhales cold, your fingertip meets silk colder than a Victorian widow's wedding band. Medieval nuns dusted tapestries with powdered mercury to repel moths, a fact whispered through your sweater's unraveling hem. You lean closer, the largest hole gapes wide as Pompeii's last breath. Its edges curl inward, a spiral swallowing forgotten birthday mornings and scabbed knees. A moth flutters out, wings etched, with Cyrillic grocery lists from a 1970s Leningrad apartment. Historians still argue whether Tudor-era ghost damask patterns hid treasonous messages in their petal counts. You cough, moth scales coat your tongue, tasting of library glue and kindergarten paste. 3 skeins dangle above, one fraying into a noose's elegant coil. Renaissance dandies stitched crushed moth wings into velvet doublets, their clothes shimmering with phantom movement. You tug the thread. It resists like a lawyer clinging to a disputed inheritance. A memory flickers, a childhood sled crunching through frost. The tapestry ripples. Suddenly, you're 9 years old, staring at bathroom tiles, while adults argue about interest rates. Moths pour from the medicine cabinet, each carrying a microfiche slide of your dental records. Your breath fogs a moth's wings, revealing fingerprints matching those on the Marie Antoinette guillotine ledger. Some say Napoleon's troops brewed moth tea to cure homesickness, though it mostly caused polka-dotted vomit. You pocket a wing fragment, its edge sharper than a Chicago balladry count. Lawyers smile. The worst hole yawns where your 7th summer should be. Peering in, you see only a frozen puddle reflecting an upside-down oil rig. Archaeologists found Aztec mourning robes lined with moth cocoons, pupae meant to hatch in the afterlife. Your knuckle grazes the void. Frost spirals up your arm like a Victorian fever chart. A moth alights on your wrist, its body a living thimble. Its antennae twitch, Morse coding the confession you wrote, then burned at 14. Clock chimes echo from inside the tapestry, Grandma's mantelpiece clock that always ran slow during Lent. You press your ear to the fabric. Cotton threads murmur about blackout curtains and divorced uncles' cologne. A moth crawls into your auditory canal, its wings humming the harmonic of a theremin playing Greensleeves. Your left pupil dilates, now a pinhole camera capturing a sepia-toned car crash. Light bleeds through the holes, projecting constellations onto the opposite wall. Each star cluster forms a childhood fear, jello molds, dentist drills, that O-N-E Chinese letter corner after lights out. 18th century Parisian couturiers embroidered gowns with threads pulled from moth-eaten military banners. The resulting fashions reportedly caused 4 duels and 1 lactose-related scandal. You sneeze. A cloud of moth scales swirls into the silhouette of your first-grade teacher's hairdo. The tapestry sags, its lower edge dissolving into steam that smells of steamed milk and unresolved custody hearings. A moth emerges with wings like stained glass parole documents, its thorax pulsing with the rhythm of a skipped heartbeat. Reaching into the largest hole, your hand brushes something cold and rectangular. You pull out Dad's Zippo lighter, the one lost at Yellowstone when he swore he'd quit. Its metal bears tooth marks from the summer he tried pretending cigarettes were licorice sticks. The tapestry convulses, threads whipping like Medusa's split ends. Moths mass into a tornado above, a buzzing column echoing with misquoted lullabies. Their wings align for a heartbeat, projecting a Super 8 film of your parents dancing in a room full of unopened divorce papers. Static crackles, the vision dissolves into black and white snow. Your thumb flicks the Zippo's wheel, flame casting moth shadows that reenact the Bay of Pigs invasion in jerky pantomime. One shadow CIA agent slips you a napkin. It's your childhood dental chart, annotated in carnival fortune teller cursive. Cold spreads, the hearth's last ember winks out. Moths blanket your shoulders, a living stole whispering your social security number backward in Esperanto. You strike the lighter again. Its flame births a tiny sun that singes a hole through spacetime's underpants. A moth dives into the fire, emerging as a swallowtail, trailing the scent of burnt W2 forms. The tapestry's holes stitch themselves shut with threads spun from your kindergarten report cards. Each plays well with others, loops into a hangman's knot. Each needs improvement, becomes a surgeon's suture. Dawn leaks through chinks in the cottage's stone skin. The moths retreat, forming a floating semicolon above the mended tapestry. Your Zippo sputters, dying with a sound like a teacup, fracturing along old fault lines. Some say Freud kept dream moths in his cigar humidor, their cocoons labeled with patient's initials. You touch the tapestry's repaired surface. It pulses once, pushing back like a fetus through velvet. The cottage inhales, sucking moth scales into dust mice that scuttle behind baseboards. Your breath steadies, 79 beats per minute, as the coldest thread snaps under its own weight. The linen river flows thicker than Mississippi mud each, wave a folded edge creased by dead men's hands. Karen's silhouette carves the fabric, his oar stirring woolen currents that moan like untuned cellos. Coins glint in his palm, obels minted from attic junk drawer finds, bent paper clips, and gum wrapper foil. 14th century Venetian funerals placed coins over corpses' eyes, insurance against underworld tollmen. You pat your pockets, nothing but lint and a Chuck E. Cheese token from '98. The ferryman's brow furrows, his fingers flex around a paddle, carved from world's best dad plaque fragments. Historians still argue whether Roman death coins were currency or cosmic bribery. You step into the shallows, waterlogged threads cling like seaweed to your ankles. Aiken, Egypt's forgotten ferryman, supposedly demanded beetle carapaces instead of silver. His papyrus skiff sank beneath mythological revisionism's weight. The boat rocks, its hull woven from tax returns and unsigned alimony papers. Karen extends his palm, a moth-eaten mitt smelling of locker room bleachers. You flip the Chuck E. Cheese token. It lands tails up, rat logo grinning through corrosion. Try Expedia next time, you mutter. The ferryman's laugh rasps like zipper teeth, the sound of a retirement home karaoke machine dying mid-sweet Caroline. Currents tug your shins, frayed threads snake around your calves. You snap a hope cord from your chest, its fibers thrumming with visions of reconciled parents and paid parking tickets. Needle reeds sprout at water's edge, their eyes threaded like antique sewing machines. 3 stitches bind driftwood to your fraying ambition. The oar takes shape as jury-rigged as a daycare macaroni necklace. Karen's cloak billows, revealing subway ads for divorce lawyers screen printed on its lining. His hood shifts. You glimpse a face that's every gym teacher who ever blew a whistle at your existential dread. Halfway across, the river thickens, a cataract of quilting cotton and shredded love letters. Your oar snags on submerged regrets. A dead flashlight from childhood camping trips bobs to the surface. Byzantine mourners floated candlelit bread boats down funeral streams, carbohydrate offerings for aquatic wraiths. The far shore looms, a selvage edge raveling into loose threads. Karen pockets your token. It clinks against something that might be a 76 Kennedy half-dollar or a bottle cap. Your oar snaps, handle dissolving into 4th grade soccer trophies, melted down for scrap. You paddle with hands cupped, scooping languid currents that drip like molasses offset printing ink. The boat grinds ashore, its keel scoring the fabric of whatever comes next. Karen points downstream, where a convenience store Slurpee machine hums beneath Stygian willows. Free refills, he growls, voice box jammed with toll booth nickels. You step onto land that feels suspiciously like your aunt's shag carpet circa. 3. Behind you, the linen river knots itself into a noose, its currents still whispering lunchbox negotiations and discontinued antidepressants. Lightning cracks, a dropped spindle splitting storm clouds. Rain falls as loose embroidery floss, every color labeled with grieving Pantone codes. You shrug off Karen's lingering stench, a blend of diesel exhaust and regret-spiked potpourri. Some say ferrymen pocket 48% of afterlife tolls. As service fees, union rules carved in Babylonian cuneiform asphalt. Your stitched oar unravels, strands forming cairns that mark the trail ahead. One thread pulses neon pink. It smells of birthday cake and radioactive isotopes. You follow, toes catching on carpet burns, as the cottage exhales mothballs 5 miles downstream. A coin rolls downhill, George Washington's profile warped into a sneer. You let it go heads or tails, won't matter where you're stitching now. The loom devours the noon sun whole, shuttles clattering like bones in a xylophone factory. Moonlight bleeds through warp threads, stretched taut pale ribbons pooling around your soiled sneakers. You taste burnt keratin, the stench of celestial hair scorched during solar snacks. 1919's solar eclipse proved Einstein right, stars bending light around our swollen sun. Your shadow warps across the floor, stretching into a funhouse mirror version of your mom's frown when you dropped linguistics for interpretive basket weaving. Fleece clouds choke the sky's throat, black wool swallowing the last fleck of gold. 16th century Hungarians shot flaming arrows at eclipses, trying to reignite the sky's snuffed candle. Your fingers grope for threads. They squirm like grounded eels. The shuttle jams, its bronze teeth gnawing twilight into confetti. Could have warned me, you tell the silent loom. Dust motes swirl in protest, forming the Morse code equivalent of you didn't ask. Historians still argue whether Newgrange's passage tomb aligned with eclipses, or just bad Neolithic math. Your elbow bumps the beater. Its swing carves a canyon through indigo fabric. 7 stars wink out, snuffed like birthday candles on a dementia ward cake. Overhead, rafters creak, each timber clawed with Norsemen's eclipse warnings, and a doodle of SpongeBob SquarePants. You pluck a silver thread. It hums the opening bars of Total Eclipse of the Heart. Reality frays at the edges. Patches of Iowa cornfield visible through the cottage walls. The warp tension sings Middle C, vibrating your molars into Morse code grievances. Darkness clots the air, thick as grandma's gravy after she doubled the cornstarch. Blunt needles rise like obsidian monoliths, their tips gleaming with stolen dawnlight. You count seconds by the drip of melted clock wax, 3 drops per existential crisis. A chorus line of black swans pirouettes across the dead sun's face, their feathers shedding eclipse-viewing glasses from the 1972 Kentucky Derby crowd. Your pinky finger brushes the heddle. It frosts over like a Chicago car window in January. Eclipse chants echo, half Gregorian hymn, half used car lot jingle. 27 generations of Scottish weavers called eclipses the devil's darning egg, their looms draped in garlic garlands. You sneeze, the blast unravels 12 minutes of carefully woven gloom. An emperor penguin waddles through the sudden gap, its tuxedo stitched from void fabric. Wrong metaphor, you cough. The penguin side-eyes you its beak, snapping up loose photons like sushi off a conveyor belt. The air smells of burnt toast and regifted myrrh. Needles descend, piercing the woolen sky with surgical precision. You dodge a falling constellation, Orion's belt buckle, pinging the floor like a dropped quarter. Steppe nomads, buried eclipse witnesses, with yarn-bound jaws, silencing any boast about surviving God's blinked eye. Moonlight colonizes the floorboards, each splinter hoarding stolen radiance. Your shadow returns, holding hands, with a silhouette that might be sleep deprivation. Or your 3rd grade clarinet teacher. The beater's next swing births a sound, cross between a didgeridoo and a kazoo factory exploding. Black cloth ripples, revealing a red button labeled "Do Not Press." Underneath, small print about voiding cosmic warranties. 19th century spiritualists would have auctioned this moment as ectoplasmic investment opportunities. You press it because duh. The loom screams a sound felt in molars and uncovered tailbones. 7 dead languages spill from its reed, each word a paper cut to rational thought. Eclipse totality tastes like the inside of a Tootsie Pop wrapper, 32 licks to existential dissolution. Light leaks through fractured threads. Patterns suggesting a double solar flare doing the tango. You shield your eyes with a moth-eaten tapestry of the Boston Tea Party. Historical accuracy questionable due to 3 visible skateboards. Moonlight pools deepen, lapping at your ankles like thirsty ghosts. Somewhere a sheep bleats middle C, the Loom's discordant lullaby rebooting as elevator music. Your skeleton thrums in sympathy, marrow rewriting itself into sheet music for a dirge. Walls dissolve into yarn storms, the cottage now just a persistent idea. You float through unraveling time, each thread a fuse leading towards something that might be dawn or dental surgery. Last month's grocery list surfaces in the chaos: eggs, bread, cosmic absolution. The eclipse coughs up the sun, half digested and glistening with apology. Your shadow curtsies, its edges blurred like a drunk impressionist's final masterpiece. Needles retreat, leaving the sky patched with temporary dental filling. Threadbare moonlight clings to your lungs, every breath sewing shut another question. Your ears pop, that vacuum-sealed sensation after plane descent into Denver. The cottage exhales mold and burnt lavender, the smell of textbooks left in haunted lockers. Even your pulse goes mute, a traitorous metronome abandoning its post. 1926's silent film revival ended abruptly. A projector ate Rudolph Valentino's smug face, history's first case of mechanized karma. You try snapping fingers, your hand pantomimes a seizure. Cotton fills your throat, raw bowls planted during the Nile's last flood. 18th century German composer Heinrich Müller wrote a 40-movement symphony for deaf, a UDIENC. Yes, all rests, and sorrowful program notes. Your sweat beads pause mid-roll, defying gravity and common sense. That stolen Egyptian king from Section 3's Tapestry mouths silent orders, his linen lips fraying at the edges. You blink once, twice. A spider freezes mid-plun, its silk becoming fossilized dental floss. Historians still argue whether the Voynich manuscript was herbal encyclopedia or elaborate Elizabethan prank. Your left shoelace dissolves into smoke, the air now 90%. Held breath. Frost blooms on the loom, ice crystals replicating the pattern of Jackie Kennedy's inaugural gown. Someone should have told this cottage that silent movies need captions. You attempt to scream, it dies like a teacup poodle, shoved in a vacuum chamber. A moth lands on your nose. Its wings beat the rhythm of Morse code for help. The floor swallows sound, each floorboard a hungry little black hole. You remember Kyoto's silent tea ceremonies, how steam curled into existential question marks. Your teeth chatter the chorus of Born to Run, silent but violent. The Egyptian king's finger unravels, threads spelling out Coptic curses you can't pronounce. Walls shed plaster, revealing horsehair insulation, whispering secrets about Nixon's missing 18 minutes. Moonlight petrifies mid-splash, a frozen milk puddle at the foot of oblivion's fridge. You grab a spindle. Its whorl holds the world's last audible friction. The click echoes like a bullet in Atlantis's ruins. Air solidifies. You chew through it like day-old baklava. 18th century sleep doctors prescribed mute quilts stuffed with owl down and shame. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, biological Velcro failing spectacularly. The loom's shuttle rusts in real-time orange decay spreading like gossip at a sewing bee. You mouth well, fuck. The void files a restraining order. That's when the shadows start signing ASL poetry about tax audits. One final thread glows, incandescent, as Edison's first successful filament. You tug, it snaps with the finality of a guillotine-kissed goodbye. The cottage becomes a fossil, its timbers swapped for amber, and buyers regret. Frayed gold bleeds into indigo, the horizon unravels like threadbare silk. You trudge through cottage shadows, now thin, as onions skin each step, rustling parchment dry leaves. Leonardo da Vinci once designed an alarm clock that slapped sleepers with a leather paddle, a fact you'd trade for one functional eyelid now. The lullaby hums backwards, its notes pooling like congealed syrup in your inner ear. Something crunches underfoot, not twigs, but crystallized fireflies from a 1920s bioluminescence fad. Their acidic glow licks your ankles. Victorian chemists once bottled dawnlight for rich melancholics. You squint, the eastern skylines warp and weft, splitting at the seams. Historians still argue whether ancient Persians wove sundials into prayer rugs or just enjoyed checkered floors. A thorn snags your sleeve. No. A brass shuttle's tooth, clinging like lovelorn crab. The loom's skeleton protrudes, cotton bones bleached by 9 decades of phantom dawns. Your breath tangles in airway threads, each exhale shorter than Truman's piano solo at Potsdam. That Egyptian king from the tapestries flickers, his sandals disintegrating into kiln-fired dust. Fingers brush something cold, a porcelain thimble stamped with Metternich's coat of arms. 19th century diplomats hid treaty drafts in sewing kits. You smirk as politics unravels. Wind hisses through rotten heddles, playing the cottage like a wheezy accordion. Coffee-colored clouds bruise the east, the sky's final dye vat drained overnight. Your knees buckle, collapsing into wool tufts, sprouting where floorboards once rebelled. Civil War soldiers stuffed wounds with raw cotton. This fact blooms sour behind your molars. Dead spools roll past, unspinning decades into flaxen filaments. You cough, a mothball dislodges, bouncing like a tumbleweed in a miniature goby. Moonlight thins, its silver adulterated by creeping daylight's cheap bleach. The weaver's stool lies splintered, 3 legs snapped off during Coolidge's first term. You probe the seats stuffing horsehair and Petrarchan love sonnets gnawed by larvae. Someone carved dusk is a lyre into the treadle knife, strokes frantic as a jazz drummer's finale. A skein of crows erupts, wingbeats stitching the sky with black cross stitches. Their caws arrive muted, sound waves strangled by the cottage's final act of spite. You fumble for the door knob, disintegrating like sugar cube in Vatican wine. Shadows melt into floor cracks, liquid night retreating to its underground reservoirs. First light claws through chinks, blades slicing your last private thoughts to confetti. The lullaby frays into discordant notes, a music box submerged in molasses. Your spine adheres to the wall, glued by resin leaking from paradox trees. 19 species of those trees went extinct before Linnaeus finished naming them. Eyelids flutter, gummed shut by dream residue, and the cottage's sticky finale. Sunrise winds pouring through rotting rafters like overzealous lemon juice through cheesecloth. You become silhouette, a human-shaped void in the world's unraveling tapestry. The last thread snaps, vibrations humming Mendelssohn's Requiem at 3/4 speed. Darkness persists behind your sealed eyes, a lullaby's final gift. Cotton fills your mouth, not raw bowls now, but quilting from Lincoln's deathbed. Somewhere, a forgotten loom creaks, its shuttle weaving silence into an eternal breakfast nook. Breath slows, a broken metronome buried under 6 feet of mothballs and regret. Dawn's edge hangs incomplete, a skipped stitch in the universe's embroidery. Gold retreats, indigo reasserts itself like ink blots on a psychiatrist's final note. Historians will never catalog this moment, their index cards dissolving in the dew. You sink, final synapses firing like papyrus catching flame in Alexandria's dusk. The lullaby's last note embroiders your eyelids, cross-stitched X's sealing world from witness. Your heartbeat mimics a stopped clock, spring unwound, and dangling like jilted bride's garter. Silence conquers, not with fanfare, but the soft sigh of threads cut too soon. Night returns not as curtain, but as weaver's final, cobwebbed punchline. Cottonmouth and amber veins, you become the cottage's last keepsake. Horizon threads fray, gold bleeds into indigo. You close weary eyes, the lullaby stitches them shut. Frayed gold bleeds into indigo, the horizon unravels like threadbare silk. You drift through cottage shadows, now thin as gauze, each breath softer than the last rhythm of the loom. Leonardo da Vinci, they say, once built a clock to startle sleepers awake. Yet here, even time's edges blur. The lullaby murmurs backward, notes dissolving like sugar in warm tea, a melody seeping into marrow. Your foot grazes crystallized fireflies, their glow dimming like forgotten street lamps. Dawnlight, once bottled by Victorian dreamers, now whispers through cracks in the walls. The eastern skyline frays, wool unraveled from a weary spinner's wheel. Experts still debate whether olden Persians wove time into carpets or simply loved patterns that danced. A brass shuttle clings to your sleeve, its teeth rusted but tender as a lover's grip. The loom's bones jut skyward, bleached by decades of ghostly mornings. Your pulse slows, a pendulum losing its sway. That Egyptian king from the tapestries flickers, his crown crumbling like dry clay. Your palm finds a porcelain thimble cool as a diplomat's forgotten promise. Wind hums through broken heddles, a lullaby for the crumbling rafters. Coffee-toned clouds stain the east, the night's dye pot emptied. You sink into wool tufts, soft as battlefield bandages, once meant to staunch wounds. Moonlight pales, daylight seeping in like diluted milk. The weaver's stool splinters, its legs surrendered to an era of silent radios, horsehair stuffing spills, chewed by moths and time. Carved words on the treadle blur, their meaning melting into the grain. Crows ascend, stitching the sky with fleeting threads. Their calls soften, muffled by the cottage's surrender. The door handle crumbles, sweet as candy, dissolving on the tongue. Shadows drain into floorboards, night pooling underground once more. First light filters through cracks, gentle as fingers through hair. The lullaby phrase, a music box winding down. Your spine rests against the wall, held by sap from trees lost to history. Eyelids grow heavy, sealed with honey-thick dreams. Sunlight spills through rot pale lemon, washing over worn cloth. You blur into silhouette, a shadow stitched into the world's edge. The final thread parts humming a hymn only silence remembers. Darkness lingers behind closed eyes, soft and endless as unfurled thread. Cotton rests on your tongue, spun from stories, whispered in hushed sick rooms. Somewhere a loom creaks, its shuttle weaving stillness into the air. Your breath ebbs, a metronome's last sigh beneath layers of dust. Dawn's hem hesitates, a dropped stitch in the fabric of hours. Gold fades, indigo blooms like ink on parchment. No historian will trace this moment, their records lost to morning dew. You settle thoughts glowing faint as embers in a cold hearth. The lullaby's final note brushes your lids, stitching them with gentle X's. Your heartbeat stills, a clock's spring resting at last. Quiet winds, not with thunder, but the hush of a needle tucked away. Night returns, a familiar blanket, woven tight. Cotton and amber, you nestle into the cottage's whispered farewell. Horizon threads fray, gold bleeds into indigo. You surrender to weightless dark, the lullaby lacing your dreams shut.